But viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
Hey, what up? How's it going? Have you seen have you watched the infiniteconversation.com, infiniteconversation.com? Have you been there yet? It's got two things we love. Three, really. It's like a trinity. You've got the holy AI as this recursive neural net that's been trained on Werner Herzog, and another one trained on Slavoj Zizek. And it's like a chess game where one speaks and then the other responds. And then it just never ends. It's the infinite conversation. It's been going on for months.
This is AI.
This is AI, but one AI, two AIs, three AIs, really. One AI system of two AIs. One AI being Slavoj Zizek, and the other being Werner Herzog. And check this out. There's a fourth element.
Way. I would never dream of exchanging places with an animal or having an animal's place.
It speaks.
I think that we are something unique,
And
even
to be
though
clear,
I'd
is
rather
this
not be
for
us.
everyone?
We are a strange species, and we can't survive anymore without destroying our planet. We must solve this problem, because we cannot continue to live on this planet.
This has been going on for months, and it got to a really hardcore place right as I was like checking in on it again.
We'll have to learn how to exist outside of the Earth. Somewhere else. Yes, I'd rather not be a human being.
Yes, I agree. We cannot continue to live like this. We must either give up being human or end up destroying the whole planet. And here I think it would be wrong simply to call for improved humanity and so on. I think that we need to accept a radical cut here. Some kind of suicide. Yes, suicide. Why not? I'm not afraid of this word.
Well, probably just got demonetized, but this is AI generated, by the way.
Okay.
That's what they're saying.
Here's kind of an important question I feel obliged to ask. So when you're listening to those, are those like clips that are from them throughout all their talks and everything?
Well,
it's just
sort of. It's like a DJ, but it's a DJ of nano samples. So they've got his voice figured out so that when they string together new letters of words, that it's actually generating in that sound, but they're not using like words per se. Although they will be like, oh, he's very often said this and he's said that. So we're going to include that lexicon and that framing of how he mumbles and that will be included in how he speaks, right?
It's a little less the chef from South Park after Isaac Hayes left. It's not exactly that.
Right? That's totally that calls that to mind. You're like,
but
wow,
it's just been going on forever too. This has been like, I don't know, at least 6 months or more, right? And so maybe longer, maybe a year almost. I don't know how time has been going so fast and slow at the same time. But it's just this conversation then continues on with a new response, and then it responds and it continues to go. It's just brilliant. I love it.
Is it 6 months worth of audio, or
yeah?
So it's all real time.
Yeah, it's all real time, and then there's like XMLs.
I'm not afraid of this word either. Yes.
We should be prepared to commit. Yeah.
I think it's naive to believe that we can save life.
The problem is that we are no longer in a situation where we can contain our own progress. We used to be able to move forward with some control and some limits, but now it's no longer possible.
I don't know. I just feel like once I started paying attention to it again, it started having a very specific conversation that was like, whoa, you just geared it towards like right what I'm talking about right now. I don't know.
Apparently it is infinite. So it's like, you're not going to run into the same issues you ran into with the Neverending Story and all those people suing because they paid for tickets to a Neverending Story, and it was less than an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
that was probably a problem in Germany. They probably had bigger problems with false advertising. And in America, they let that one slide.
That was a Simpsons bit. That was where that Phil Hartman's voice was just like, "This will be my biggest case since the Neverending Story." So, yeah.
R.I.P.
How Paranoid American? How's it been going with your music?
So I've just been going hard in the paint here. I think I released like 20 or 30 tracks over the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, this has been like my most fun that I've had in such a long time. Yeah,
dude,
4 days ago, 3 days ago.
The Hunter Biden one is the one. Like I woke up one morning right there with the jet fuel camel steel beams. Like that's quality. That almost doesn't sound like it's AI. Really, like that's really believable.
That's the intent, man. It's to try and get it as close as I can.
It's even truer for the Hunter Biden one though. Yeah.
And then what was the other one? Adrenochrome. If I go to tracks, that's what I have to do. Homunculus Trap. Got that DMT like Rene Descartes.
This one is one of my favorites for sure.
I hope that the audio is coming through all right. Stand as a mushroom.
This one's short.
Sometimes it just says what it needs to say, you know?
Right. No, it's good. So, what I want to know is, can you get to the place where, like, there needs to be, like, some kind of just, like, program that will let you kind of make a set that actually beat matches from one to the next.
That's like, literally I just talked to the company. Like, did they talk to you yet, Thomas? Have you talked to the guy who made
I've got a call scheduled with them.
Yeah, same situation. I'll mention that we know each other. I had a feeling. I was like, they must like be looking for people like us. So
yeah,
but
man.
that was my first thing. I was like, I'm sure you've already heard this thought, but like a way that you could resort XMLs so that, you know, once you've got like, 'cause right now you can linearly connect ideas from one song and continue a song. Why not now make it so you can connect to separate projects? It figures out what's in between, because that's the next level of DJing, really.
Yeah, that is the next level of DJing. I've actually been saying that for years, honestly, like just, but not about AI songs. But now that I'm listening to these, it just seems like it should be even more straightforward.
That's not hard to do. It's usually called like a seed travel. So like usually you'll go from one seed to the next. In a normal sequence, kind of like adding noise and making sure the noise has like a little bit of like Gaussian or like organic feel to it. But what you can do is you can say that like while you were at this seed for this song and another seed for this song, you transition the two of them and it merges together. There's like a lot of different ways to go about it, but it's like entirely possible now.
It seems like all you'd have to do, like, is that it registers the, say, the snare, and then matches just one thing, and then it'll match the rest automatically, you know?
Well, what it's doing behind the scene, I'm almost positive I understand some aspects of it, because there's a program from Facebook called Music Gen, and one of the things you can do there is give it a specific key, and you can give it a BPM, and then you can describe everything else. But when you set the BPM, all it's really doing is it's setting like a metronome that just goes tick, tick, tick.
Right, because it's just about you, that pitch control adjustment is where the human usually enters in. So if it knew how to adjust to match the pitch control and then to drop it where it's appropriate, I mean, that seems like, of the things that are out there that are all automated, that seems like it would be one of the more basic. Like,
well, it's also music is the Microsoft project, which is pretty interesting and is doing similar things where it's learning how to separate, lyrics and vocals and tracks and understanding of tracks. And that's all going to be into, like, again, XML scripts. So it's very similar to like video editors or anything else. You have a bunch of meta tags that you can later sort and tie together.
Okay.
And the more you break it down, the easier it is. It's like a mosaic.
Randy Leet says AI music sucks, and to him, I would say that I agree. But of the things that I've seen done with AI, this is my favorite, because it's so creepy to begin with. If you know you're listening to AI, if you didn't know you were listening to AI, you wouldn't even know that it's creepy necessarily.
Oh,
like,
and Brittany did a $5, and there's a $5 rule now that we have to play Box Saga. Hold on.
Yeah, they're like, ooh.
This is an AI generated song that sucks. Shitty Beatles suck.
It's not just clever.
I mean, the people are demanding the Hunter Biden track.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Can you send me the actual track so I can upload it to Spotify? I mean, to not Spotify, to StreamYard. I mean to say. I love this song. Do you come here often? I said, hello?
Fuck a laptop, fuck a beach.
What sign are you?
Oh yeah, I know. I like what we can do with AI music. Box Saga. Yeah. But yeah,
those lyrics of that Biden song are like as big a part of it as anything. It's like, so those lyrics, like how it decided to go with that, like what did you put in there? Did you mention the gun or what happened?
The lyrics are definitely not AI. I tried it a bunch of times and it just wasn't. I had to tell it that its name was Hunter Burden, and then I had to like go through and remove the R's because it just would not write about Hunter Biden.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't hitting any of the catchy hooks, so every song that I've made so far, the hooks that I've had to write, sometimes the verses come out, but it's like the songwriting's still the hardest part. If
you telling me that you wrote that song, lose a gun and still get rich?
100%. Yeah, I sat down and I write all these hooks, dude.
Oh, good.
I don't know if you heard the homunculus one.
Yeah.
I don't like. I might not get a lot of fans on that one, but the hook is literally just blood and semen over and over again.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste.
It is an acquired taste.
Here we go. Yeah, man, I'm all about it. That's what I'm doing too, because like it's really hard to get AI to write songs well, and they're all. I'm like, stop using prepositions. Think like Ezra Pound. Like I get so angry.
So, Thomas, is this sample that it uses, is that an actual answer machine of Joe Biden talking to him?
Yeah, so the one that I sent, Andreas doesn't have it, but it's Joe Biden leaving a voicemail on Hunter's phone, and it's saying
that's a real message.
It's a real message. Yeah. Wow. And he's saying you're out of control. And the craziest thing, you're gonna love the synchronicity of this, is at the very it ends and he goes, Hunter, like, you need help, you need help, I know you need help, whatever you need, I'll do it. I love you. And the second he says I love you, the vocals and the bass just dropped, and I didn't edit it or anything. I just put it right at the very beginning of the track, and it fit perfectly. And I was like, you know what I mean? When you make those edits, and you're just
dude,
like, all right,
dude, tell me about it. Story of my life. Like, that's one of the most satisfying stuff. It's like sometimes it's like it feels like it's planned for you. You know, like this track was already made. You just put the pieces together. You know,
like when you pull up in your driveway and the song ends right as you turn the car off, and you're just like, I was supposed to be here today.
Right. You know, Tom Petty had this idea that the songs already exist and he just found them.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's not just about him. He's just like, this is when you come into real songwriting. Like, I feel that way about like Stairway to Heaven. Like, it's just like feels like this song already existed and they just like uncovered it somehow. You know, it's hard to
There's a lot of truth to that. Where to have my window open? Hold on. That movie Yesterday. Remember that movie Yesterday about that dude who like hits his face and all of a sudden he invents the Beatles? He's like in a world where the Beatles didn't exist.
Yeah.
I feel like
premise. I liked the movie. It could have been so much better though.
Well, you know, it wasn't for you or me. It was for like really basic like people. You know what I mean? It's like people who like the blue pill. And I'm glad. I want movies to exist for everybody. That's brilliant. I'm glad that it was kind of deep for like normies. But there's, where is it? Polish notation. The unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics in natural sciences, right? That's why music works so well and why we discover it. And you're right that it already exists. And why Stairway to Heaven's a great example. Oh, whoa.
Oh, it just switched over to the next thing on SoundCloud.
I love gibberish.
Oh, yeah, so I edited this part out in the one I uploaded.
Look at the laptop, fuck a bitch. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, that'll get us in trouble. Well, yeah.
Every once in a while, the AI will decide to like add a little outro that you didn't ask for. It's
David,
like
thank you for the. Yeah, I have a really good one. I wonder if I could find. Hold on, actually, there's one that I thought was really cool. It was like a gibberish track, but it was like a Dutch gibberish track.
The audio version of this reminds me of the same weird premise of like doing it with images where like you couldn't go to a musician and be like, here's the lyrics, give me 100 versions of this in the next hour so that I can.
Oh, you used to be able to do it. That's the thing. I remember like, so I remember a friend of mine bought like a record, like several times. So I've had friends buy recording studios and they'll have like, look at all these tapes. It's like, these are all the tapes from all the times they had all the bands and all these musicians come over here and just record, and they would just pay them to record. And then they'd have backtracks of different kinds of bass and guitar and drum and things like that. And then usually we get like jazz rock, progressive jazz rock, progressive rock.
Like a German radio commercial.
Yeah, right?
Well, you know, if you do go out to a club, you know what I'm saying, you gotta watch yourself, whatever you do, you know what I'm saying?
I play just an old-fashioned techno. I feel like you're about to have a drop, but it could take forever. You never know.
Oh,
there it is. Yeah. So the point is, mathematics, I think, is the answer there. Like, if it weren't for the mathematics, then none of these songs would work. And then, like, it's so that's why everyone's like, oh wow, it really works. And that's just proving in real life scenarios all of these mathematical formulas and algorithms that have existed that people had no idea what they were going to use for or why they existed. Right.
So is the premise? Go ahead, David.
No, you go ahead.
I wanted to ask, is the premise of pi correct, that everything in nature can be represented by mathematics?
Yeah, I think that's
not only that it can also be understood through mathematics. So that's that whole premise, like everything in pi is true up until a certain point. In that way, it's almost like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in a sense, where you're like, okay, up until this point, we've been completely accurate, and then when we veer from it, we're just, you know.
Where's that point, bro? Because it seems like
in pi.
Yeah,
pi,
I mean, in reality too.
It's actually pi is a satire. So like when it gets to the place of the 216 number, there's a reason why it's the 216 number they're looking for, and not like the 72 or 26 or whatever. They're looking, or 42. They're looking for the Gematria of Gavora. So like that is like the point of pi, and it seems to be kind of like a satirical statement on Israel itself and relating to what the people are looking for with the stock market and their ambitions with that. is like basically showing that the ambitions of, you know, the Hasids who take him, that they're not, you know, what their intention is, where they're coming from. They say you're not ready, you know, but he's
You
like,
have
oh
to
well,
use
how
a
are
cult
you ready?
decode from now on, by the way. You're
Yeah,
not
I'm
allowed to use
trying.
any-
I was
anything
literally
else.
about to say, like, where's yours again? Occult decode. Here we go, at the best site ever. And then what we're looking up, Gabor. How do I spell Gabor? What do I do?
Gavora in Hebrew.
Yeah.
It's in Hebrew. It equals 216, which is 6 times 6 times 6.
So
And it's
guys,
also 216 is the number of a man in Hebrew. So that's why in the book of Revelations, it's actually, there's several places in the book of Revelation where it actually points back at the Hebrew, even though it's written in Greek. So like the Gematria of the Scarlet Woman, I think this came up last time. The Gematria of the Scarlet Woman in Greek is 667. And so she rides atop the beast. She's like adding Aleph to Gavora, basically.
You can hit enter on that, by the way, and it'll give you a
that's
bunch
right.
of matches.
But this isn't giving you Hebrew letters. This is giving you English, right?
Yeah,
What is
no,
it?
I don't have the Hebrew on it. I used to have it, but it represented its own set of problems because of the right to left nature of it.
Sure. Well, why would that matter with Gematria?
It was just giving me long technical. It was giving me long issues with the database when I try to enter right to left characters in the database and then retrieve them. It was just it was like an extra like an hour that I didn't have the day that I was working on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A couple days ago, I saw this thing, Elon Musk, God, right? Like Elon Musk talks about God, and he says he was an atheist. And also, people say he's an atheist, but they don't know what they're talking about. They actually interviewed him on the Babylon Bee, and he's like, they're like, "Do you accept Jesus as your savior?" It was really hilarious, actually, because like he's talking about a bigger thing than most people, and so he's talking to these Mormons, right? Because Elon Musk's money guy is, you know, this LDS dude who is like his right hand man. He's around some transhumanist religious people and stuff. So he says in the interview he believes in Spinoza's God, right? Spinoza's God. And Spinoza is interesting because people think of him as an atheist as well, but he's not an atheist, right? He's a dude who kind of, some people even are a little bit better will say he's a pantheist, but he's not a pantheist, right? Like he believes that the quote that Elon used comes from Einstein, Spinoza God. Let's see if I can find this. I believe in, it's a quote. He didn't say it was a quote, but we should know. It's, I believe in Spinoza's God. He was saying this to Rabbi Herbert Goldstein in 1929. I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the lawful harmony of the world, not in a God who concerns himself with the fate and the doings of mankind.
Isn't that not dissimilar to that quote of "I never hated the one true God, but the God of the people I hated"?
Yeah, I think it's kind of,
if he's arguing that what Spinoza is pointing to, because it's a kind of a weird phrase to say Spinoza's God. It's just his idea of God. Let's be clear.
Right. But Spinoza's God was important because Baruch Spinoza was, you know, he's essentially a rabbinical student who was excommunicated for his ideas about what God was, so much as that people said he was believing in not a God, right? Like that, his idea was so outlandish to them because he took it to like a mystical place. But it's a math play. Look at that guy's QR code jacket. That's freaking amazing.
Hold on, let me scan this really quick.
I'm going to save that. Super big.
Oh,
well, this is
weird. It goes to a pizza place in DC. It's
big. Pseudo Dionysius
in Virginia. Sorry.
Pseudo Dionysius the Areopagite is like he's a dude who gets converted in Acts 17. In Acts 17, Paul says, you know, basically to the Neoplatonic people, because they're like, dude, like you're talking in our city and we're pretty into jive and philosophy and all that. What's your whole deal? He's like, dude, resurrection, immortality, it's based. And they're like, yeah, that sounds kind of crazy though, because like we have our own religions and stuff, and we've never heard of yours. Are you just making some stuff up? And so he comes in and he says, well, you know how you have that big temple that's to the unknown God? Like I see that you guys love religion, and you even have a temple to the unknown God. And the reason people have an unknown God temple, right, is back then, is because you come to a town and people are like, who do you worship? I worship the God of Steve of fried rice. And they're just like, really? We have a rice god here named Jeff. Is that the same? No, fried rice. Okay, well, we have the unknown God temple too. Just to make sure that we're not leaving any God out, there's assumed we're probably missing something. There's the unknown God. It's a trade commons thing. Like you can worship your unknown God in the town, like if you're from a different thing. And But it got to a Neoplatonic point that people were interested in the unknown God. They're like, oh, the unknown God, that's got to be like the Zeus of Zeuses, right? Like that's got to be like source. And more people were interested. Now this guy comes to town and he says, I know of the unknown God. That's literally what we're talking about. And it becomes this major idea, that like the mystical idea of the unknown, right?
We're talking about a junk drawer right now, right? For gods.
Yeah, they turned the junk drawer for gods into the unknown God, like the source God. They're like,
That's
yeah,
kind of cool, because every once in a while, like the thing that you're looking for, like it's in the junk drawer. You just didn't realize it.
That's true. I had a dream one time that I was in. I was like 6 years old, but I'll always remember this dream. I was in Mr. Rogers' office, and it was like this. You could see it was a studio, like a movie set. Like it was his office, but also it was like there was like cameras and stuff, and like the like a real place. But he wasn't there, and I was like, oh man, he's not here. So I like opened his drawers, looked through his stuff, and he had like rubber bands and like tape. It's like, I feel like I shouldn't be doing this.
I sent you that link because I want to have a serious breakdown of the you can skip through the very beginning of it, but it's Sticky Fingers from Onyx. Shout out back to F up, but he's having a conversation directly with God, and this thing was like way deeper than it deserved to be on some like random album that was actually a pretty decent album. Like it's like a whole like theatrical thing from start to finish where he like gets in trouble but the actual song between them, he asked these questions that reminded me of that exact Spinoza quote that you just brought up.
And he's talking to God. And he says, come on, my effing God. Oh, what did I do? Well, explain it is, I could probably skip around. But he's like, it's all my fault. What am I doing, my man, my God? Why did you have to take him, F? Why, God? Everything I love seems to die. Answer me, speak to me. I don't hear you. Answer me, MFer. I ain't scared of you. Is there even a God? And then God says, are you confused, my son, and scared? Let me make things more clear so you're more aware. F was that. All this is freaking me. It is I, God. Did you not say you wanted to speak with me? BS. I'm talking to myself. I'm going to say it. God, you are talking to yourself. We are one and the same. It can't be the drugs. I'm high. And if you're... then why were we born if we live to die? Is there life after death? What were we before birth? Why is the whole world, the earth, plagued and cursed? Is killing a sin? Is there life in other planets? Is adultery wrong? Did you write the 10 Commandments? Easy, my son. One question at a time. We were never born and we will never die. In the essence, there is no such thing as death. How could I write commandments and not have them kept? The soul is eternal, you just change form. Then you come back with a new face on. I'm pretty sure he must have said.
Yeah.
You cannot limit love. This is very much like John Wilmot, the Earl of Rochester. All right. You cannot limit love unless you lack understanding. To answer you, yes, there is life in other planets. The future, a mystery. The past is history. Today is a gift. That is why it's called the present. Life is so simple unless you make it confusing. The wise ones stand this, and the clever will use it.
The one line in there that's resonated with me for, I guess, 30 years now, that thing came out when I was like a teenager, was, how could I write commandments and not have them kept? And that's like always stuck with me because it feels like a very real line in the sand. And what he's describing is such a beautiful consolidation of the whole, like, are you omnipotent or not? Like either you've got full control, and I realize that might be an oversimplification.
Well, you also are dealing with laws like the laws of nature versus laws like a stop sign. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like
how often we want to. Sorry.
Yeah, like gravity versus a mandate.
Well, yeah, like how often people want to like blame things on supernatural causes instead of just acknowledge that we're living in a system of mechanical modalism, like atoms or whatever we want to call it, like just us bumping into each other, to the fact that we're constantly things are not moving unless they're moved, right? So things are already moving. I think this is actually kind of an interesting a better definition than original sin, is that like because there's already chaos and entropy, that's causing further chaos and entropy until that's changed.
So that, yeah, that's the deal. So like there's a lot of confusion around that when there's like the speaking to in ancient texts of the world that is to come, and the treatment of that, because almost everybody feels that it's going to happen in their lifetime, especially if they live at the turn of a century. Pick your century. Like it happens every time. That's why like the New Age religious, what we call New Age religion terminology, like it gets used and recycled again and again and again, and you can actually go back through history and find every time that there was like some like numerological date that people saw significance in, like it's like the fire in London. Like if you lived in London in 1666 and there was just this massive fire and the only thing left is the church, right? Which, you know, if you go to the British Museum, they'll be like, it shined like a beacon of hope for the people, and you're like, did it really? Like well, you know what I mean? Like it just lost everything, you know. But it's just like, in other words, I'm just saying, like there's like these events that occur through time, and people imbue them so much with like this kind of I don't know, this like enthusiasm. But yeah, it's a trip. Sorry. Are you muted?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
No, but like the idea of substance is interesting because we constantly come back to change in reality. I was talking to Ed Annunziata a little earlier about DNA and how DNA is memory, and memory seems so important. You know, memory might be like the most important thing because biology is essentially it's geologic memory, and geology is then coming together, recording itself into nanoscopic chemical explosions, which then it can use to predict the future based on what's happened in the past. So you have like a system of continue. So there is something where the future is affected by the past, and that is why time is interesting, because it is consequentialism.
Right. There's two main levels to it, right? Because when you're dealing with like prediction versus prophecy, which I've talked about before, but
yeah,
you know,
that's a huge problem.
Prophecy is literally a vision into the dynamics of the thing in itself, as Kant would say. And so prediction is what you're talking about, where you can see the pattern, like in pi. You're like, everything around us can be represented and understood through numbers. And when you graph the numbers of any system, patterns emerge. Therefore, there are patterns everywhere in nature. And then he gives examples like the cycling of disease epidemics, the rise and fall of the Nile, caribou populations or whatever. So you can graph that all out, and you can see that there's actually like a framework to it. And through that, if you were to apply it to like history, you could see the trends and you could see the cycles, and you can make predictions. But you can do that all with your left brain. And the place where prophecy comes in is basically where you transcend that compartmentalization, and you get like a direct perception. And then to translate that into language, it almost has to be like a dream language. Like it's hard to communicate that. That's why it makes sense when you look at a lot of the apocrypha that is considered prophetic, is that it's dealing so heavily with mathematics in order to articulate what it's pointing to, you know. But it's like there's a line between those, but it's kind of a line in the sand, you know what I mean, between like our goings on as people and what actually exists in nature. And we're not separate from it, but we are distinct, and that's the paradox.
It's interesting thinking about monalism, because, you know, this idea of psychism or panpsychism or pantheism, like the issue with it is it's the idea that everything started and is evolving at the same time, and so we have there's a lack of complexity when things start, and we reach complexity. It just seems like a complete inversion, because we're seeing complexity at the greatest, at the alpha point of all things. Like at the beginning of everything, things are immediately trying to fall back into synchronicity, into perfect shape and form, into symmetry.
Right. I talked about this with Thomas on his show, but there's an issue when it comes to album film pairing, when it's really ridiculously on point and somebody's witnessing it. Because I've shared my films over the years since junior high with like, you know, hundreds of people or whatever. And there's certain things that people will repeat to themselves while they're watching. It's almost like, it's weird to me as like an outside observer, like looking at people's reactions. Because one of the things that people will often repeat is, why would they do that? Just those words. Why would they do that? Because they'll see something and they'll be like, how did that happen like that? And when it repeats, or when the lyric is so direct what's going on, in certain instances, not with all of them, some of them are just feel like happy accidents. But that's the paradox of the thing, is that I really feel that there's an organizing principle in nature. And that like when it comes to like, if you're entertaining the idea that somebody came at that with intention, would it be as mechanical, or the way that we assume, like when you're like trying to match something, it's like, it seems more like they're kind of meeting something that already has this propensity, or this tendency rather, that it's like it moves in this direction. So they just kind of like align themselves with it in a way. And like
that's the thing, are we making it happen? So like with part of the problem with science then is like in the 60s people started really the Jesuits and Catholics that were really interested in metaphysics started really pushing metaphysics into the science and saying, we're seeing where this is going. Did that hypothesis affect what we believe about science? Because people had to take for granted, they're like, well, we'll eventually we'll find this to be true. And so those were a lot of the gaps that we're just accepting as truth, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, there's like there's like I say, there's a distinction, but there's no separation, and you can't quite pinpoint exactly where one ends and the other begins. And that's part of the beauty of it. Like, and also this is the thing, like if there was intentionality, this is why if somebody were to admit it, say a musician or a director or whatever, if they come right out and say it, that destroys the whole thing, because there's a mystical aspect to not knowing and being okay in a place of not knowing, or not being in okay, whatever it is. If it drives you crackers or whatever, as the Beatles would say, that's one thing. But like, you know what I mean? Like it's in the mystery of the thing. And if you remove the mystery, where's the it's not going to propel the person. It's like if you find a backwards message in an album or something, say you find it and it's unmistakable and you're like, wow, that's a real backwards message. Like if they say that there's a backwards message in the song, they just destroyed the whole mystique of the thing.
So. I was looking at some pictures my mom had, and so this is a picture my mother took in her 1968 or 69 Santa Clara University metaphysics class at Santa Clara. It's a Jesuit school. This is Friar Father Fallon, a Jesuit priest who was teaching metaphysics. It's really interesting. He's looking at him trying to explain the noosphere. He's talking about the noosphere, which is this idea that eventually people use to develop the internet, right? This idea that mind is maybe panpsychism. There's something that's connecting the two. Just talking about ego, out of consciousness in the background, and just this idea of like the kind of the milieu and the mind's anomalous. I can't quite read it, but yeah. I think it's interesting that all these ideas so early on, like these are thoughts that already they're trying to develop, and they're telling people this is the way things are working. And that really gets built into how computers work. But they're doing that because of math. They're saying this is how it must be because this is how math functions, right? Everything is coming back to that AI-driven music. Like we're seeing it work. It's making perfect curves. We're able to make these functions work. So that has to be the way it works, or what do we think about math then?
You're sure that isn't a picture of a ghost?
Well, he's dead now, unfortunately, but yeah, he's a holy ghost, definitely. It's Casper.
I don't care for math. I think we could do without it.
What the fuck?
I mean, Bernard.
You're gonna have to defend that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll say that the way that math is taught in the West, specifically.
Oh, well, that's a different conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. But I'm still triggered from just like crying myself to sleep and having like my parents scream at me and like all over math homework.
Dude, thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, I was failing math in high school when I was I think a freshman. And I got a tutor. I've shared this story before. A tutor showed me 2001: A Space Odyssey for the first time, and my mom dropped me off because I was like, didn't want to get a tutor, but I was failing math and I was super embarrassed about it or whatever. And this tutor, like, he sat me down and I'm just going to share the story if you don't mind, because it's a good one. Go. He sat me down and he turned off the lights and he played 2001: A Space Odyssey, and we watched the whole thing without saying a word. So when we finished, he said, you know what, if you want to, you can tell your mom what happened today, or you can just say it went well and leave it at that. And I was just like, I thought he was like totally like doing up to something or something, it just seemed weird to me. And then the next week I come back and we sit down and we watch all of Contact. And like, I had never seen Contact. I think it had just come out. It was just like, And so I watch all of Contact, and he's told me the same thing again. He's like, you can tell your mom that we just watched Contact or not, whatever. And I didn't tell my mom, and I felt all bad about it. I felt weird. Like, am I doing something wrong? And the third and final meeting with this guy was much longer, and I actually got dropped off at his house, which was up, Andreas knows, up Highway 17 off of one of those side roads, and he was like way out in the woods, and my mom left me there. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours, and his wife was there. So we meet his wife, and he takes me into this space, which is like his work area, and he's just got like a giant desk just with all of these books and all these papers and all this stuff, and he had like geometrical things hanging from his ceiling and stuff. And he's the first person to ever tell me about Gematria, and he told me about it that day, and he proceeded to give me a whole rundown on the mathematics in 2001: A Space Odyssey in both the movie and the book, and then the book of Contact from Carl Sagan and the movie with Jodie Foster, and just like showed all like in his work, like his, and it was like geometrical and all these things. He's like, here's how they all relate to it, and it was super like enlivened about it. Like, he was so enthusiastic. And he basically explained to me that we did not invent math, that we discovered it, and that what math is like this representation of this thing that it's pointing to, which is completely profound. And he proceeded to try his best to explain to me why it's profound, and he like all this stuff, and he just blew my mind. And I went from failing math to getting A's in math within a semester following that. Because up until that point, like you said, this is why I'm like, thank you for saying what you're saying, because I always related to math as such a dead, boring thing. I was like, why do I have to do this? It was so strenuous, and like having like, but now I know also when you're dealing with the metric system and all this shit too, depending on what it is that you're doing, you're dealing with fractions or whatever. But it was just I never had somebody explain to me that we discovered numbers, that we invented the symbols to represent them and the letters because it was language, but like we this is something that we found. Like, it's such a distinction, and it's just totally like I just changed my view on math forever from that time.
I said it quite a bit in jest, but also like I never liked math until I started working on computer games, and then it just like some of the math just kind of clicked inherently. And when I started seeing like for like the biggest one for me was pathfinding algorithms. There's something called an A-star or Dijkstra algorithm. And once I actually saw how it was working step by step and the math behind it, I got this whole new appreciation for math, and like went and relearned trigonometry and everything. Read it because like I remembered taking physics, I got like a D or an F on every single homework thing, but on every test I got like 100%. So like I knew that if I had the formulas, I could just plug X, Y, Z, whatever, and like it was easy. But it was almost like they purposefully made it boring as hell.
Yeah,
like
of course.
Punishment.
I think they didn't want too many people to be good at math. That was something I saw that a second ago. Math scores drop globally. There's not a lot of reason to have people know what's going on, right? And so the best way to do that is to stop people from seeing trends, statistics, understand how numbers work. Because those are consequentialist answers. Once you know how things work, then you know what the future will hold. You can predict not to buy high and to sell low. It just changes you as a person if you know what's happening.
Bill should be on this. He teaches a math class.
I know. This is a big... we're just trying to force him to want to get on the show. Give him the link. Avicenna,
you'll see him in the comments.
If you see Bill, why don't you jump in here and just start screaming? Here, I'll just...
No, you totally could if you wanted to.
I'm gonna send you a link just because you're cool. Hold on.
He just said the Cabala is Egyptian, so there you go. He has something to say.
In case you feel like jumping in, here's the link. You can jump in and out. I don't mind. I love you. Avicenna is really a beautiful man. He was a Golden Age Islamic philosopher. And when you look into math, like you can't really do it without checking out the Persian mathematicians. Some people think of Aristotelianism as super base. I think Avicennianism is far more base. He invented hypothetical syllogisms, or really like understood hypothetical syllogisms to a level that other people didn't. So like, if a cat is hungry, it will chase mice if mice are present or available to chase. Otherwise, it will look for inventing all these kinds of systems of logic. And at that point, we had syllogistic logic, like all things fall to the ground. Right. But not really like if something does not fall to the ground, it is an exception. And therefore, what is it? Like that kind of logic really starts. Nuanced rigidity of philosophy comes from Avicenna, and a lot of that kind of mathematical genius, because we're then saying, okay, How can we apply this? These are abstract concepts, tens. Well, we have tens of apples or tens of thousands of piles of grain, or we have a tenth of the income or the eighth of the income. All of a sudden, these become really practical because you're dealing with millions of people. You know, it's a huge caliphate at this point.
Right.
So, I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of the earlier writings you'll see, and in philosophy, you'll see everything's so non-dual.
Look at this champ walking in here.
Oh, yeah, he just jumps in.
This is our favorite math teacher. I mean, we have a lot of friends who are math teachers, actually, but one of our favorite math teachers ever is William John. He knows what's up. He's trying to help the kids in a similar way that David's teacher was.
What the fuck?
More supervision.
I promised myself I'd try to jump into one of these things again. So this is me trying to do that. Egyptian Cabala, right? Egyptians hid their Cabala, right? It was the Cabala is a bridge you walk across to get to the higher level mathematics. Without it, you either go crazy or you become a robot, right? McLuhan talks about all this, how to use media to set the sense ratios in the human mind, right? So the Egyptians, they hid it. But then, people sold it or took it and expanded upon it. But for some reason, after the Torah, this conceptual framework for the mind, number, letter, number, and this hyperdimensional architecture, we lose it? Why?
Well,
right?
So it's complicated.
Kubrick, I think, put Cabala in his movies like the PKD laser. It's like
sure.
He was able to transmute it into a medium, right? And you sink your teeth into it for 25 years. But that's what I wanted to throw in, is that math is once you cross that gate with the Cabala, right? Then all the higher mathematics seemingly, I think, becomes poetry, right? Letter, number, letter. That's the goal, right? Something like that.
Right. Well, my rabbi told me that there was basically, for lack of a better word, I guess you could say, a synagogue in Heliopolis. And so when I was telling him I was tripping out on the Hebrew word on, ayin vav nun, whose Gematria is 707, which is one definition of strength, but it also relates to idolatry. That it seems as though...
Is that AVN?
Yeah, you could say that. But the A isn't Aleph, it's ayin. But yeah, so there's an argument that there was a like an early expression of Kabbalah that was actually from Egypt. So he doesn't see that. My rabbi doesn't see that as offensive at all, talking about like Kabbalah's Egyptian roots, because his feeling, which is also my feeling independently, because I've given him a lot of thought, is that no one owns geometry. This is literally like you're looking at a cell dividing, essentially. Like you're looking at one order, which is what we see with the I Ching, with its 64 hexagrams, and then what happens with language as it extends from that. So that this is speaking to our order of the sustaining order of the empire, as it were, basically being distinct but not separate from the organizing principle of nature. And so that's the interplay between the supernal triad of Keter, Chochmah, and Bina with Gevurah, Chesed, and Tiferet, is that like that's the square and compass. That's heaven and earth merging. And so it's this difficulty that we have when we're looking at an order that exists, that's underlying everything, and then we're seeing our own order reflecting itself back to it in kind of a skewed way. So this is why I think they say that Klipot mirror Tetragrammaton, because they're imitating it. It's like I also have speculated that this is kind of the idea behind what's that movie Mimic, which was what's his name? I want to say Benicio del Toro, but that's an actor. Guillermo del Toro, who did Pan's Labyrinth and stuff. So it's like there's kind of like
Mimic was underrated.
Yeah, weird. Mimic I think is about the Kabbalah, about literally the Klipot, Kabbalistically, that there's kind of like an artistic kind of communication there.
The
Wow.
television. It's about how the television mimicked the symphony. The television mimicked the theater. The television mimicked the war zone. The television is the mimic, is the chameleon, right? And it plays on that psychological, you're in private, but you're connected to the public. This, inner.
I kind of read it that way too. Like, so when I saw it, I was thinking as a kid, like, this is about like the gestation of the media generation because they don't know what's coming. Essentially, like they're breeding this thing, which is this Kafka-esque beast, which is the future, and they don't know what to expect really. The contemporaneous solutions of the film are not enough to handle the future shock that is coming, and that future shock is being portrayed as this beast, but really that's just us, like the next generation.
We have seen the beast, and it is us. No, it's what is it? Maybe there is a beast. Maybe it's only us. That was Lord of the Flies, right?
I liked what your rabbi said because I feel like so did Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. When they talked about like nobody owns geometry, right? Those who stole the espionage thefts of the nuclear secrets, right? I mean, it's math. It's freaking math.
Right, totally. I mean, you've been sharing a lot of images of like swastika related stuff from various cultures, and just kind of like, it's not even, is it reclaiming a symbol, but it's like we have these associations with symbols. I can't wear a Charlie Chaplin mustache because everyone's going to associate it with that other guy. You know what I mean?
For a few years though, so like I went to Germany, and like in 2012, 2016, 2017, it was like really common to wear the Chaplin mustache in Germany. So I feel like even Germans are trying to do something about that. And there was that movie that came out, Guess Who's Talking? No, that's the wrong one. Guess Who's Back, right? The Look Who's Back.
Oh yeah, that was a good movie.
Dude, it's just like that. Look Who's Back, it's called, and it's just like
I'm gonna bounce out, fellas, but I'm gonna listen.
Oh well, wait. No, did you want to say anything else about math before I talk about like Hitler fan films from Germany? Like, come on, right?
No, I just like in relation to the movie Pi, right? It is satire. Like Cabala will make you lose your mind, but not in the way that the movie's showing you. I mean, it's funny, right? Like that's what your life is like without it. I think it's this. I think Gurdjieff's Kunderbufer, whatever. That's the Cabala. If math was found, right? If math was discovered, and math is all around us, who twisted it up into the Cabala first? Who made that leap? And that was the Egyptians, right?
It's argued that, but at the same time, you could say the same thing for the ancient Chinese. They just had their own system, and they weren't looking at language in the same way with the alphabet. So the alphabet with Hebrew is really what is the kicker. So it's I would say that one thing is grafted onto the next, but they meet, and that's the weird thing about cultures, when you're attributing
in ancient Timbuktu, though, you had like apprenticeships of philosophers, and this went all the way into Greece, right? So when people in Greece had Aristotelians, they were studying under philosophers that they could learn from. And at the time, because also there wasn't language that was universal in Timbuktu, a major thing was to leave, and you would leave with learning how to create symbols or drawings or things that could, like, essentially was prototypical language, because it's language, it's script for people that can't read the script yet. And so a lot of hieroglyphics come out of this.
You know how I was saying 2001 was a laser that taught everyone Cabala, whether you liked it or not? It uploaded it into your brain.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was.
Totally.
Those early seals, those were like, in the land of propaganda, those burned brighter than anything ever. Like, it, you know what I mean? We see a faded mark, but I mean, that was, you know what I'm saying? That was...
Yeah.
That was how many subscribers you have right there on your hut. You know what I mean? Totally. We don't know the difference between 2,000 and 20 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Kubrick with his millions of people following him online. Yeah.
Which was, I don't know what I'm saying. That's why I got to get the fuck off of this. But
no, but he did have millions of people that loved him.
Last thing. And this is seriously, like, I have to have this question answered. How do I take Cabala and teach it in my math class? Do I not? Because I'm already doing that, essentially. You know, the myth of Osiris, the things are all scattered. Sure. Right now, I have all the scattered pieces in my room. And I feel like if I was given the permission, I mean, this doesn't get me in trouble, but not bring the mystical in.
Right.
But allow the math to become mystical. How off base am I with that? Because it's like, if the kids understood,
just make a Billy John rubric.
You're getting to upload into your brain, you know, with the technology we have, like, you're so privileged to have this ability to get under the hood and upgrade your system, you know.
I'd say, yeah, you should show them.
I think there's this blockage in the mystical element to it that brings the poetry into it, and it feels like the woke is what they're trying to wrap. That's what they're trying to. That's the spoonful of sugar. That's the missing ingredient that they think they're bringing to the equation, is their identity and their community and their love, and that's going to be the magic ingredient. But what if that's not enough? Right?
I think you just have to use, like, so the Sephira is a rubric, right? And in every single math class, you're showing patterns. Geometry is obviously the easiest place to show synchronicity, but you can do that with formulas too. Algebra is really great for this as well if you're using living examples or like
their
word
antennas for synchronicity are I think savagely dull and not as kinetic as you would hope. And I don't know if that's endemic to the age or endemic to our media age with those phones. Are the phones dulling their synchronistic connectors?
Probably.
I don't know, man. I know Doc Hopper says he's indoctrinating kids, and what I would argue to that is that the curriculum is made to indoctrinate kids. Not just the curriculum, but like as it stands, what we could call a curriculum isn't what it used to be. And so there's like, you talk about ESG scores and all this shit that like is coming from on high, and like to be a teacher and to want to like help kids have critical thinking and like their own perspective. It's like we're talking about Cabala. But like Cabala, like we say, like isn't really owned by anyone ultimately. Like no, like if there's something that is pointing to that we see in nature, we should be able to talk about this without attributing it to a particular culture necessarily. You know,
exactly.
Yeah, that's what math is. Math is the religion in a lot of ways because it just preaches truths, like of proofs, right? These are proofs instead of just things to take on faith. The only thing you take on faith is that you could probably test the math in a real world circumstance, but it seems to repeat itself. So even teaching kids how to draw a flower using, geometry is pretty cool. Showing them like you can use geometry in these crazy ways to make proportionality or something like that. Like if they're interested in other subjects, like showing them how math is applicable to those other subjects. Music making, for one, is one we were talking about earlier.
Like it's like
rap.
Everyone can see the situation and recognize these directions to take it in, right? But, you know, you've got to move the army across half of Russia to get to your goal. Like, we never get them there.
Yeah.
They all die.
Do you ever, do you want to learn how to rap? Like, teach them how to, like, count syllables line for line so they can do formulas with syllables, you know? Like, that's what I've been doing. You know, I think that's what you should teach people practical ways of using math in the real world. I had a video game as a kid called Math. Was it called Math for the Real World or something like that? Listen, it was like all about a rock band.
Do you want to know how out of touch we are? Or maybe I think the system is out of touch. We are force feeding them 20th century technology in a 19th century classroom. All right. The formula is we have 21st century brains in 19th century classrooms being forced into 20th century technology. Nothing adds up to them, right? But all you have to do is remove all the 20th century technology and you allow the 21st century technology to go into a 19th century classroom, then you got something. And this was the whole point about folding time, right? This journey across this century was this no time, because they knew that where they were going, they had to get back to the beginning of it. And I feel like I think that's what VR is. And I don't know how to say it louder than that, or without, but we don't know really what this is going to do to people younger than us.
Yeah, you do. Just start speculating right now. Actually, if someone were to like pull you into a room because it was like the movie Armageddon, and they're like, scientist, math teacher, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, there's a proverbial comet headed towards us. Like, what would you say, right? Like, oh god, there's so many things playing at once now. What have I done? Okay, sorry. No, like, but what's gonna happen is non-Euclidean geometry. Keep going.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So we're good here. This is perfect.
Non-Euclidean geometry is going to give people new parts of their brain. It's going to change your brain without actually needing to rewire it. You're going to actually just kids growing up in new kinds of environments that they couldn't experience before, right? Walking around a room that doesn't really exist is going to be a huge. I mean, being able to go into spaces that are impossible, walking down by walking up, right? This is the kind of thing that's going to change everything.
I mean, pretty much everyone's going to build their own house. And I mean, we're going to be really jealous, which is good, because I think the opposite of that is really bad, right?
Have you seen this one where, like, look at this little tiny space here, and then he walks through the space. Hold on, you can see, and it's much longer on the inside, right? So I think things like that, we're going to get used to that. That you'll be able to come out a completely different place where there's a wall that doesn't exist. It's longer on the inside.
It's insane. No, I mean, think about that from an educational perspective.
Right.
And applying that just purely from an educational push. It's like, it doesn't matter which direction you push it in, it's going to be amazing in whatever arena you put that in. So
go in this room, turn around, different size room. Like, there's hundreds of new rooms every time you walk through a room, and it creates a new space. I mean, this is really rudimentary at this point. A few years ago, this seemed super fascinating, but it's going to get to the point that you're going to develop the ability to perceive dimensionality you wouldn't have had in this world, right? Things that just you wouldn't have been able to experience are going to be measurable.
It's like what Julie Kearns did with mapping out both Eyes Wide Shut and The Shining, and the way that the sets were rearranged. So if you were just to look at it, like we're following the path of like Danny going through with his three-wheeler, and it's like you can see places where it's like, does he know that he's not okay? Whatever. You can. She's basically laid out the map of these spaces and showed the impossible things that take place, where in one time you're seeing you go here and then there's a window, and then you come from the other side and it's impossible for there to be a window. How does the window, yeah.
Pretty soon it'll be possible. You'll be able to walk down and end up. I mean, just these kinds of things are going to change everything we understand about reality, and I think that's going to change education.
One of my favorite ones are what they call spatial illusions, and they did it in military training, and you've probably seen this before, but it's where you put like the VR headset on, and as you walk in a straight line, it'll change your perception to make you think you're walking in a straight line, but you'll be walking like 1% to the left. But what that has the ability to do is you can take like the large inside of like a big garage or a warehouse, and you could turn it into potentially like an infinite space, because at every time that you take a turn or every time that you walk from one end to the other, it can be making you move like a little bit to the left or the right imperceptibly.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and so then you can even think about how easy it is to be inside of some sort of, when people talk about the panopticon. I mean, living inside of a giant city, like in that movie Judge Dredd, or the Dredd movie, right? You can live in a world so big that you wouldn't even realize that there are walls outside of it, and you could be driving for 100 miles in spirals up, right? And this is something from Arthur C. Clarke's 3001. He has like eventually all humans in the world just live in these kind of towers. There's like 7 towers in the world, and each one of them is a kind of space elevator, essentially. So it reaches all the way up to the very top, and there's only 7 of them. And all humans have avoided living on the surface of the earth, so it's become a natural environment filled with like mastodons and everything else. But it's really difficult then for humans who've lived in this atmosphere to go down to the earth, because the pressure is like going to the bottom of the ocean. So most humans have to acclimate to visit, sit in a wheelchair for an hour, and then they return to the surface. And a lot of humans just never even bother to go to see the surface of the earth anymore.
What's outside of Pleasantville? Outside of Pleasantville?
What's outside of Pleasantville, John? What do you say, Willie?
It's another underrated movie, I think.
Yeah, well, I was actually thinking about it a second ago, because when Bill was describing his situation of like, how do you incorporate Cabala into your math when it's so foundational to math? Like, you should, like, point is like, when you're looking at the origins of math itself and like early people's relationship to math, beyond just Cabala, like if you're talking about like the Sumerian, like the what we call the Babylonian planetary squares and stuff. It's like, this is all like early mathematics on the planet. Like, you should be able to just talk about that and not have to treat it that you're talking, I don't know, some metaphysics or something, because maybe
a dissection of the woke ideology in a classroom, in the sense that I think it's being presented. Okay, numbers are infinite, right?
Okay.
That's in the book of the law, yes.
If you were teaching Kabbalah, you would say love, the word, is the word love that and it has a number. Mm-hmm. And then the student would have to say, well, is love infinite? Well, it's a number. Mm-hmm. And so the student is walking into this questioning math. Well, there's other words that have numbers. Are they infinite too? Is evil infinite? And so now they're in this examination of numbers from a quantum perspective, right? From an infinite,
right?
And
absolutely.
Woke ideology is trying to say people are infinite expressions, and you can't define them by something as simple as gender. That's what I think they're going for. But so there's some really good action going on, but there's this level to it that people can't go into. So, like, if I was going to say, this is the Torah, this is a math book, and I'm going to teach this math along with Euclid, which is geometry. And would people be saying, hey, I don't want you teaching my kid religion? And I said, no.
Right. Well, that's the issue. I guess where I wanted to go with that is I'm thinking of Jeff Daniels in Pleasantville being like, well, maybe if I just use some of the colors and you could tell me which ones are okay. Like, he says, I just want to paint, man. And so you're like, you have to navigate it like that, It's like,
I mean, I keep thinking of Galileo, right? Because Galileo is trying to say that, like, this is. Sorry, you're gonna say.
I could go teach at like a private Jewish school, and it would just be like, whoop. They would probably
no. Then they would have limitations too of their own. Like, that's how it goes.
True.
Hate to say it.
There would be but there would already be the foundation there.
Right. Well, it's like this. It's like I had a choice in my 20s of what I wanted to do with myself, and there was a window where I could have gone to Israel, and like, I'm like, to all paid for, but to study in a yeshiva. And if I was to go to Israel and study in a yeshiva, how many years would it have taken me before they would have given me access to the things that I really wanted to look at? So I went with Patanjali instead, with Baba Hari Das, because it was like, at least here I can, there's no limitations on me in what I want, where I want to study when it comes to ancient texts. Is it's like, I don't want to be in a situation where there's this whole like pecking order of just even they're like, you have to do all this other stuff for years, and by the time you do that, your passion will be gone. I was advised to drop out of high school by a teacher, my English teacher, because she was just like, you'll like this, Thomas. I loaned my teacher saw that I had Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, like, with me in my classroom, and she's like, what is that book? And I let her borrow it, and she borrowed it for like a brief period. And when she gave it back to me, she was like, this is amazing. She's like, I've in all my years never seen anything like this. And she was like, this is such a fascinating area. And she goes, you know what? I hate to tell you this, but you won't get, if this is what you want to study in school, you won't be able to get to do that until like after everything. And she's like, and I got to be honest, my fear is that by the time you get there, that your passion will be gone. And it was just like, whoa, dude. Like, and so it wasn't just her, it was a lot of things happening at once. But and my dad told me years later, he said he was more proud of me that I got my GED like 8 years after high school, so that I could work with a particular company I wanted to work for that required that to work with handicapped adults. And it was like they were like, oh, you need at least a good enough diploma, you know. And so like I went and I studied to take my my GED, and you know, I passed it. My dad was so like, he was like, if you had just graduated, I wouldn't have been as proud. Like, he was like, that's awesome, you do, you know. Because the thing is that, you know, they take so much from the joy of learning in the regular high school curriculums and beyond in college.
Dude,
you know,
the further you away from school, the smarter you are these days. It's really sad.
I ended up studying more outside of school than I ever did when I was in school, because the things that I was studying were the things I was most interested in, you know. But it's like, I'm glad that I got those basics for sure. Like, you need a lot of the things that they teach you.
But Bill, you got to be meeting kids that can be open-minded enough to, you know, you don't think so? How can I reach these kids? That's how you feel?
No, it's an approach that is sticky. Like, so let's say I try to run this in the classroom. I have everybody fill out a questionnaire, 20 questions, right? Let's say just popular things, like, and give them options and they circle, right? Then you have everyone take their name, right? And you have them assign the letter value of their name, and they add up and they find their number, right? And then they try to match with anyone else who has the same number when they add up the numbers of their names. And they see what they have in common on their list. And we see if there is a correspondence between the value of a name and if they have a higher percentage of things that they have in common. That gets them into the real world of math, of seeing numbers around you and then analyzing them and then putting them to a strong cognitive test. Critical thinking. Is this bullshit or is there something to it? But that's a little along the lines of numerology, right?
Well, it only seems like it is. So, like, again, Galileo says, philosophy is written in this grand book which stands continually open before our eyes, I mean the universe, but cannot be understood without first learning to comprehend the language and know the characters as it is written. It is written in mathematical language, and its characters are triangles, circles, and other geometric figures, without which it is impossible to humanly understand a word. Without these, one is wandering in a dark labyrinth, right? I mean, this is, I think, the deal. It's not just numerology. It's like, that's the reason why kids don't get it, because they think it's just esoteric. They think it's just another religion.
Right.
You know how McKenna said that when he went to the jungles of South America, and he became obsessed with the I Ching, and he was doing a bunch of mushrooms. And as he looked at his notes, he realized that he had been practicing throwing the I Ching for, I don't know, about a year and a half. And he had like 120 recorded entries. And he recognized that he had gotten all 64 hexagrams on a first throw in those 120 throws. And he thought, statistically, a long shot, right? If you have a 1 in 64 chance, only through 120 throws or 100 throws, the fact that you got all 64 with, you know, I mean, there's not a lot of repeats there. So,
right. That's relatable to what happened with Carl Jung using 52 cards playing decks, where he would have somebody predict which card that they would pull and then keep pulling cards until they get to that card. And he found out that consistently it would be closer rather than further away within the 52. So it would be within the first 26. So you would have. Oh, what's happening? You can't hear you.
I love this song. What? Do you come here often? So Brittany gifted 5 super chats, so super memberships. If you didn't already grab them, I know somebody did. Grab a few. So I mean, grab them if you have them, and then Box Saga. Travis. All right, we're good. Just wanted to. That's a new rule now. If someone does a super chat for Box Saga, they can have it.
It's like when somebody says the word on Pee-wee's Playhouse or something. It's like,
you know where this is going. Yeah.
That McKenna had the entire I Ching uploaded into memory. You were talking about memory earlier, right? How it's the most important thing.
Oh, Pleasantville. Yeah, I like where you're going. Yeah, definitely.
So he had the whole I Ching uploaded into his memory when he was doing high doses of hallucinogens in South America. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Most people over the last 2,000 years who were doing hallucinogens in urban settings had Euclid's elements
Right
in their head. Right. They had the whole system of geometric proofs. They had this this tight, perfect system of proving arguments, long constructed arguments from small, confined to, you know what I mean?
And they were living in an example of it. Most people at that time lived in an urban, suburban environment. The 13th streets are often called Euclid, right? I mean, this entire plotting of reality is built in Euclidean geometry.
So, right. It also supposedly comes from Rome, right? Because there's the 36 square mile grids in which they do these things. But, yeah.
They don't even teach proofs in high school anymore. They don't teach geometric proofs in high school anymore.
Why is that?
Well, what I'm saying is there's this fundamental program that you should upload into your consciousness before you delve into psychedelic spaces that turn the experience from one thing to something that becomes a transistor, right? The I Ching was a transistor for mechanics. It does what transistors do, right? That's the miracle of the 20th century. We don't do any of this without transistors.
Right. He did his own thing with it for sure. I mean, that was yeah.
But these memory systems, right? This is what Bruno talked about. These memory systems are things that you have to upload yourself, and then you put the dollop on top of that, and then you can run the program better. And this is what Cabala is to mathematics. You need the Cabala to be able to get into the mathematics so that you can get the proof, so that you can get to the transcendent experience, the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel, the whole Western Hermetic system. It goes through math. And if you realize that people don't have math in their heads right now, that's why everything is so fucking sloppy.
Wow, you just gave the antithesis argument from Thomas at the beginning of this conversation.
That's true.
That's what we needed. And I think a major thing also I was saying earlier is just looking, I saw Jordan Peterson talking about how atheism has led to postmodernism, but religion led to science, because science was looking for the truth because religion was looking for the truth. And so there was a competition to get as much truth, more truth, have a monopoly on truth. And then it gets to a point where it's no longer necessarily about that, because you're trying to prove what you believe now again.
Absolutely. They start with their conclusions and they try to back them up. That's like pick your topic as it relates to science. That's what they're always doing, and they treat it that's now the scientific method, and it's completely fucking backwards. Like they're treating the hypotheses like that this is solid, and they say trust the science. And then the science that they're asking you to trust is something that's still relying upon a time trial, but we ourselves are that time trial in so many cases, whether you're talking about the planet or people and disease epidemics or whatever. So that's a recurring issue. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that. You know, science and religion used to be one and the same thing. And the joke of it all is that they still are. That never changed. But now we've treated it that it's like science versus religion. And it's kind of like this, Dawkins kind of projected reality where you're sort of like, or even Carl Sagan, where you're like, if it can't be measured, then this can't correlate. Like you have to that we can't consider that it could correlate or even have that hypothesis because we have as yet to find the measurement that substantiates that. Whereas there's value in that. It helps with being critical. At the same time, it's like, well, you've taken the spirit out of there's a difference between considering a psychedelic outcome and experimenting and seeing if that's the case versus just saying something outlandish or that feels outlandish and asserting it like it's fact. I don't know.
I was thinking about someone in the comments said science is Lucifer, born to glorify God, then seeks to usurp the throne. I don't know. Actually, I gotta wonder. And I had this random thought yesterday. It's like Lucifer's gifts, right? Lucifer's gifts to humanity, because they're if you think about it, a lot of the archetypical stories about Lucifer is really something that leads you closer to God. I mean, we have the idea that they're trying to get your soul, but there's the other aspect, which is sort of like trying to trick you into realizing that serving yourself is the bad thing. That's not, it's going to destroy you, and that really you want to be serving something that is, altruistic or is helping out. Tends to be the metaphor often with like the Lucifer story. So Lucifer's gifts are perhaps suffering, death, and or mortality, maybe like and time, right? Suffering, death, and time. I think those are the three, because you're compelled because of time to do something. You're compelled because of death to do something great. And it also makes you more grateful for what you have. So you want to do something with it now.
Isn't that like the satanic churches kind of like, it's kind of like their mission statement in a way? Like, I don't know, I haven't looked enough into it, because there's like the LaVey church, and now there's this other satanic church or whatever that has the Baal statue, whatever, it's just,
is that not the Church of Satan? It's a different group.
That's not actually Baal. I forget. That's like the god of the hunt or something. That
you mean the Baphomet one? It's not.
One in Kentucky.
I'm stoned.
So
yeah,
I think that is the church. I think that is the Church of Satan or Satanic Kentucky. Is that right? I don't know.
But I mean, this is the thing, though, is that Blavatsky would always really emphasize that distinction when it came to ancient texts, whether or not we're talking about Lucifer or Satan, which he saw as two different things. She, not just them, but like other articulations around the devil, and then there's like the folklore devil, who's just like this trickster, and he's an adversary. He's similar to Satan. But the description of Lucifer is not. Are they necessarily the same thing that we're talking about? Because there's there's a lot of different communications there.
It was Arkansas, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, Arkansas.
Sorry, Billy. What do you say?
If you're talking about the intersection of science and religion, how they never really are apart, right? Then to me, it seems like Lucifer is when you separate science from religion, or you separate religion from science, right? Because if you go all in on one side, the world suffers, regardless of which one you choose. It seems like the right thing to do, to push all in the direction of science, but really, that's just one wing of the angel, right? That's how the angel falls. So it's
like how the cookie crumbles. That's how the angel falls.
Dude, you know who sucks is Al Ghazali. You guys know about Al Ghazali?
No.
All right, I'm gonna get they're gonna get a fatwa on me just for this, but I love you. Let me start by saying I'm criticizing only because of how many Persian and Arabic and Islamic Golden Age philosophers I do love. Okay, I'm only saying this because I'm already telling you how much I think I liked Al-Kindi. How about that? Let's start with saying I like Al-Kindi. Always a compliment before a criticism, and then another compliment.
This is quite the qualifier.
Al-Kindi's really cool. I love math. I love science. I love metaphysics. I love how we need to use science to understand reality more, and that this is what Islam was all about, and I just want people to know that. And introducing Sanskrit Hindu numerals into math was by Al-Kindi, and thank God for algebra and algorithms, etc. Okay, Al-Ghazali though was one of these guys who really, you don't realize how much he influenced not just the East but also the West, because he says, I think all this math is hard and I don't like it. And so what I'm going to do is basically say it's worthless and we should ban it, and we should focus on how I feel. And I feel that Islam is like this, and I feel that Allah is like that. And this is
no offense, but he was the Thomas of his day.
Oh,
people said he was.
He had a beard.
He was a doubter.
He had a beard, but no,
it's all adding up.
It's not that Thomas. No, but
his name is twin, by the way.
But no, I mean, this is a major important time in the 11th century, because all of a sudden people consider him a hero, a renewer of faith, but really a rejecter of a lot of the science, right? And so they consider him sort of a polymath and a logic person, but really his logic was anti-logic, because he was against formulaic logic and formulaic math. So sometimes it's important, but I would love to hear someone criticize my criticism a bit more. But I think he kind of ended the Islamic Golden Age, or kind of made it taboo to be obsessed with science, and that led to Spain, which led to the Spanish Inquisition, which led to Italy, which led to Galileo's error, which is that whole idea, you know, that Galileo said, all right, let's just kind of give up on science and religion jiving. Like, there's no reason that they should jive. We shouldn't worry about it. And it was never like that before. Up until that point, you have St. Thomas Aquinas, and he's saying, all right, whatever this is, if I have to start calling God the unmoved mover, so help me, I will. You know, I don't care. I'll do whatever I have to do to make our religion more sciencey. And this continued on in the 20th century, like Bernard Lonergan, freaking genius, mathematician who, you know, taught this idea of the new sphere, or the complexity of the atheistic Spinoza God as a Catholic God, which today, right? Like, who is that dude? Bishop Robert Barron, who was just on, and he's a critic of St. Pope Francis. He's a Catholic bishop, but he's not, I don't think, a Jesuit, and he's a critic of a lot of Jesuit ideas and everything else. Even he talks about like the dehumanist idea of God, like this sort of more metaphysical Christ consciousness. So everything that they've said has made its way into Catholicism, has made its way into pervasive science. It just took from the 1960s on, right? But they had already been planning this since this point. Is it just that the echo chambers are so far away that people are still believing what they were taught by teachers that people were taught 40 years ago by teachers who were taught maybe 40 or 60 years ago, and they don't know what's really concurrent?
Right. Well, Aristotle was a huge influence on the Ari, which did the same thing to Cabala. If this sounds very relatable, where they basically took something that was essentially, once again, like a non-dual philosophy, or cosmology rather, and they put it into terms that were like, you know, used for like maps, you know, where you're trying to chart an area, and it was just like there's all of these ideas that were kind of impressed into it. And then it's strange because when I listen to like Kabbalah talks today from people, sometimes I'll hear these Aristotle ideas that don't belong to the earlier Kabbalah, and it's like, it's really weird. It's like there's an entirely different school that emerged with its own kind of paradigm that went with it. So they put the cosmology into a closed paradigm. And even like, you know, the way that the tree of life is represented, like when you see it drawn out, that's not what it is. Like, there's no depiction of the Kabbalistic tree of life in the Zohar or in the Sefer Yetzirah, for that matter. That is something that came in like the Middle Ages, where they started like depicting the thing. But really, it's like it's twisting like nodes on a branch, you know, like it's all one thing. It's not this duplicit image. Like, that's not what you're looking at. It's kind of like the way that there's that conception. I think Nassim Haramein did a good job of getting it computer animated to look at what the planets actually look like as they twist around the sun in their particular formations, you know, and the way that they all interact. That's like more of a closer conception of what the tree is in the first place, because how things develop into form, organic life, whether it's lightning, trees, or human beings or animals, you know.
Right. And it is interesting, like the Arabic philosophers were convinced of a geocentric model, like they had this whole like everything spinning around them kind of thing, and like that did all their math for it. Sorry, Thomas.
I've got this is like the most random thing, but this is totally on topic. So I got this book that I read that was from like the late 1600s, 1680 something. It's called A Voyage to the World of Cartesius, and it's a little bit of a satire, I think. But there's this whole debate that this guy is writing about, and it's about the Aristotle versus Descartes. And I don't know if you can find it, but it's called The Old Man versus the Fake Cartesians. And I'll read like a couple little spots from this. Yeah, shout out to a book club. He covered this one in detail. It's like a 3.5 hour episode.
Nice.
But he says, let's see, that Descartes had given himself up basically this opinion that man is of parts. And it said that he broke contact with all those that called themselves Cartesians because they no longer had the zeal and observance of the first Cartesians, and that everyone nowadays builds systems according to his own humor and allows himself the liberty of adding or removing what he wants in the platform that Descartes created, which is a concern of critical nature, as cannot once touched without the spoiling of the whole. Since the death of the famous, some guy that I didn't hear of called Cherslier, writing to other people, convinced that the pure, unmixed Cartesian was buried with him. And then it ends here with one little statement. It says, "You gentlemen are of a strange constitution, It looks as if you, with the rest of the new philosophers, have banded together to make continual war upon the followers of Aristotle, but at the same time, you fall into the same error you criticize him for. But you're 100 times more bigoted to Descartes than they to Aristotle. Like, he's throwing like hot fire on this, you know what I mean?
Totally.
And he's like, y'all, like, nobody's real, you're all fake, like, you're calling yourselves real, but you're just latching yourselves to the name, but you're throwing out like all of the gems. I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
Right. Sure. Huh. Oh, you're muted.
What's the name of that philosopher you didn't know the name of?
M. Charcelier. I'll post it in the. You probably know his whole bio. And the one that's writing this is let me find the guy's name. I don't think it's a real person, to be honest. I think it's a fake person, but that was his name, Father Mercanus.
Philosopher.
And it might.
It's kind of a long-winded way of saying "baby with the bathwater," though. No,
actually, it was a real person. I posted it. Oh, talk about synchronicity, dude. Marsane's laws describe the harmonics of vibrating strings, such as guitars and pianos, and his seminal work on music theory, the father of acoustics.
Trying to open this over there. There we go. Marine Marsan. Okay, and he looks pretty Jesuit, doesn't he? What's he doing? Is he
so the book is attributed, at least the beginning of the book
Jesuit
is attributed
college.
to a letter that they found from this guy. Yeah, Jesuit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Jesuit colleges. That doesn't make him a Jesuit. Just if we want to, be clear.
Oh, he taught theology.
He taught. Oh, I wouldn't read the whole thing. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I thought he was Jesuit when I saw
a lot
his
of people
coat.
teach theology at Jesuit college.
That's true. That's true. It's true.
I just didn't want to do that thing where we're like making a list and we're like, the words.
I think it's. I'm gonna keep doing it because it's like the Jesuits are so important to science and math, and like whether you like it or not. So whether you hate what people believe the world is, if you hate the idea that we're in base 10, or you don't want. I mean anything you hate about.
Sure, reality. I mean they had the wherewithal to recognize that the Titanic wasn't unsinkable. It's like, sorry.
I mean, what do you think about Bill? What do you think about base 12? Like, what if we started teaching kids base 12 math and just having them count with their knuckles and stuff instead of 10?
It's like that just kind of shows how far people are away from what math education really is and what they really need. You know what I mean? Like, if you saw the problem, you wouldn't ask that question.
Dang, you're in the Crusades, aren't you? That's pretty brutal.
This is like more. There's more teachers trying to get their students to buy a record player and start listening to vinyl, right? Because they missing out on something that will really enrich their lives, right?
Wow.
But they're not getting them the right math education. You know what I mean? Like they're not getting
#priorities. Uploading
this critical thinking program. Like if we think of being indoctrinated into a religion or into a propaganda or to politics, you can't indoctrinate someone into math because math makes them a critical thinker.
I thought that's kind of what they accused Socrates of, though. No.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It does feel like most people are pretty happy with the fact that Americans don't know math.
Dude, you know what they should make? They should make building blocks with magnets in them that have microchips that turn on and off, and instead of letters, they would be algorithms. And so you would only be able to fit them together. You're holding them in your hand, they kind of bounce off each other, but they only fit together into the algorithm that you need to make, like if you're trying to make a correct algorithm.
Oh, maybe you can help me with this project. I've been wanting to design a game called Tower of Scrabble, which is a combination of Jenga and Scrabble, where it's actually the blocks are like the building blocks are all letters. So
can we call it Scrabble on?
Things out and build
Tower of Scrabble
on. I'm open. I'm not stuck to that name. Yeah.
All right, I'm for it. Let's make that game. That sounds good. I mean, yeah. Do you think games because a lot of kids love games? Do they play games as much as you think they do? Are they on their phones playing games?
Well, let's put it this way. You know the little Candy Crush or the little Dragon Fighter games,
yeah,
very rare.
Play those?
Who's gone through a whole Legend of Zelda quest.
Right, but they play the Candy Crush thing. So I remember Number Munchers. Did you ever play Number Munchers?
They play Call of Duty. They play Fortnite.
So what you need to do is you have to be like, all right, whoever comes in with the highest score of Number Munchers gets a free bag of Hunter Biden's crack. I don't know. Like, if you're just really good at getting the highest numbers, if you can gamify it, maybe that, like, if you're getting the higher, that's almost like grading on a curve, but it's gamifying.
He had Rubik's cubes on their desks when they came in the first day, and then had them basically post the results online. Right.
That's super based.
But let me ask you one question.
I like that.
All of you, Thomas, Andreas, David already knows. Out of my students, 175, how many do you think knew how to play Tetris when I told them to go to Tetris.com and play Tetris? What percentage do you think out of 175 knew how to play Tetris?
10%?
5.
Oh, wow. You guys are more in touch. I thought it was going to be like 50%. I thought they would have all known it. It was like 20%.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
20.
That's better than I expect. I expect 10% because kids can't handle anything new and different. Like, it's weird. It used to be that kids could handle anything new and different, but now they're like shocked. And I think we've had such a shocking world that people want to play it safe. That they don't want to try new things. Once you get them into it, though, they can do it.
What about solitaire? I gave them solitaire. I gave them actual cards and to set up solitaire and play solitaire. What percentage do you think you have to play solitaire?
Less?
I feel like they would have. Yeah, I feel like they would have just lost interest within like 10 seconds.
So I taught them on the computer first, and about 20% knew solitaire.
Okay. Gave
them the cards. A few of them you could see like hypnotized by it. Once they learned that they actually do it, I had this one student get more excited about doing solitaire right by herself. It was like she was moving. Tarot cards. It was like this magical thing she was doing.
Wow. Yeah.
So foreign to her to have kept the whole thing in her own head and kept track and made it work. And it was exciting, but it was also kind of frightening. You know what I mean? Solitaire, I don't think was, I think, you know what I mean? Like playing cards and knowing all those card games was, I think, pretty common.
Yeah, and great for your mind, obviously. Bridge, Jim Rummy, those things like that, right?
So it's like they missed leg day. You know what I mean? They have not worked out that sector of their brain.
Yeah.
To try to get them up to a 9th, 10th, 11th grade speed when their legs are at 5th, 6th grade, it doesn't make any sense. But that's what the technology does. The technology decentralizes the math. My phone's about to die, so I'm gonna step out. But,
dude, it's really important stuff what you're saying, though. We'll have to continue this at a later date. We'll talk more.
It's a field of study that anyone who is, listens to the show should just take seriously. All right, later.
I'll see you soon, man.
Yeah, thanks. And before we move too far on from Number Munchers, I want to throw out another educational game that almost nobody I've ever met had heard of this before. And in fact, really quick tangent, when I was at Disney, we paired up with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt because they own the properties to Carmen Sandiego, Oregon Trail, a whole bunch of like all the old like border bound like software. And we were gonna basically work on one of these games and make it all modern.
Wow.
And they said the whole catalog's open to you, and it was basically Carmen Sandiego. This is 2012-ish.
Oh my god.
So it was basically like everyone was divided between Carmen Sandiego versus Oregon Trail. But I found out that they also had a game that I grew up with that no one's ever heard of called The Island of Dr. Quandary. And this was like the coolest, weirdest, like you got sucked into an evil carnival and on this like enchanted island. I think I have this. And you have to like find
the frog, the freaking frog cave.
Dude, this thing was the coolest freaking educational game ever.
Dude, I love these kind of games because like it felt so immersive, and yet now that I think about it, like this was just like one page, and then you turn the page into a new page. But it just seemed so advanced at the time.
But
mythical.
This was something that I didn't realize I was learning math, and that I was learning like all sorts of logic and stuff through this. This was one of the ones that actually snuck it through. Like this was a spoonful of sugar.
Clearly, kids in Russia remember that was what that page was from. Took a while to load.
Is it from Russia?
No. Kids in Russia have played the game. Is like clearly like it's made its way over there.
Well,
like some of these older games.
And I wanted to note that at that meeting where we were like brainstorming all this stuff, I brought this game up, and even every single person that worked at the company that owned this property, no one even knew what it was. That like they owned it because they'd acquired all these companies, and it came from not the education company.
Yeah, the Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium. The Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium. That is the most based. I can't believe it. That's crazy. Megasoft, Megasoda. There you go.
Long story short, we ended up with Carmen Sandiego.
Well, that's pretty sweet. I want to see that project. That seems pretty cool.
Did you find out where she is?
I mean, I have to tell you off of live stream. It's NDA, but yeah, I know exactly where she's at all times now.
It's an island off the coast of Argentina. It's not that big. They clone people there. We all know. But it's
I've got some images too that they told us were too sexy, and we had to tone them down. So I can show you some of those when we're off air.
But this had nothing to do with the Netflix show, right? Or are you talking about the Netflix?
No, it has absolutely nothing to do. This happened way before that. That project wrapped in like 2013 or 2014.
Dude, I love the Carmen Sandiego game. I like that they were trying to train kids how to be spies, like for no reason at all, right? Like that. What happened with that? If your parents can afford a computer, you probably are in a different tax bracket. Was that what happened? Why are they making this game? It just seems like a crazy thing that they would do.
Was it the thing with Gotcha that was actually popular in Russia or Germany? The
movie Gotcha?
Yeah,
I mean, this movie is very popular with any Slavic person I have ever met. Yes,
but the game,
no circumstance.
The movie was inspired by a game that people were playing with in public spaces with paintballs, and you basically you're hunting people down in a public space. They were playing it at colleges or whatever. But I think it started overseas, and that's like the inspiration for the movie. Like because he goes
really, there was a real paintball club. No, he goes to East Berlin, but I mean, so there was a game called Gotcha that was a pretty fun video game. Gameplay, something like that. No, that's not right.
Right, but it's like there's that game where people are literally playing it in cities and stuff where and there's different players, and so like somebody could walk up to you and like look at you kind of weird, and you're like, what? And they're like, are you in the game? And you're like, no, I'm not in the game. And then they're like, oh, never mind. They walk away. And it's like people would play these games. And
laser tag seemed like it was going to become that for real. I'm surprised. I really wanted that. I wanted a world full of laser tag because I grew up with Gotcha. And I was like, dude, if eventually they get to a system of radio based instead of using lasers, that you're able to like, if you find someone, then you're able to trigger them if you make some sort of contact because light is a problem in the daytime and all that. This never works enough. But I think there's a reason for it. Like they don't probably want people to have like excellent sniper skills in recreational suburbia.
I'll admit, I always played with my hand over the sensor. Like that was the only way to play.
Oh man, I have a horrible story. One time, I was at the boardwalk and there was like this cute like deaf girl, and there's these deaf people, and then there's these people that were trying to like cheat because like the deaf people couldn't hear like the sounds of the thing going off. So I got like really enraged and like helped hold somebody down while all the deaf people took shots at them.
Oh, you did something similar to me in a way. No, it was this little kid. He looked like maybe he was like 12 or something, 11 or something, and he got me, which was fine. It's the game. He got me, but he was doing a thing where he wouldn't go away. He was just following me. And so and then he got me again. And I was like, dude, you got me twice. I got one more hit at the boardwalk also. And I was like, I was so annoyed with him. I just took his gun and I just like I held it like away from me. And he was like, what? Because he didn't realize I got force, And then I was like, and then I shot him, and then I waited 2 seconds, and then I shot him again. And then I was like, okay, we're having a truce right now, and we're gonna go our separate ways. We're even. And he went to try and shoot me again. I was like, dude, and I took the gun and I shot him the third time, and he was like, what? And he was out. And then I was walking across the street with Amy, and she was wondering why this kid kept on looking back at me, and he was with his parents. And he kept on looking back, all weird. She's like, "Why is that kid looking at you like that?" And I was like, "Well, I'll tell you in the car." I told her in the car.
That kid and I have some history together. It's a long story. Oh my god.
I shot him for you.
Yours is more brutal though, because it's a group mentality. It's like
It
got
Full
pretty Metal
pretty.
Jacket.
But yeah, it's true. It was
It's the end of Full Metal Jacket. Sorry.
Well, with lasers at the beach.
No, Full Metal Jacket is a symbolic gangbang. We all know that at the end. You know.
Oregon Trail was always the fact that Oregon Trail is from MEC is really interesting to me. It's from the Minnesota Educational Game Consortium, because I always thought, like, as a kid, when I think of America, I think, you know, when someone says they're not from New York or California, like, if you're from New York, I feel like you just didn't want to leave. You didn't even really want to go to America to begin with, or something like that. And you got to New York, and you just, you know, you're like, all right, I had to do it, but that's it. I'm not moving after that boat ride. I'm not going anywhere again. And then there's people that are like, yeah, no, I'm going. I'm a goer. I'm going places. And those are people that get to California, right? That was, as a child, that's what I thought. It wasn't necessarily true. I mean, but so I believed, I think probably because of this game, that if you didn't make it to California, because of course, if you weren't in New York, you were trying to get to California by this logic, that something happened in Oregon Trail. And I'd literally be like, what happened to your family? If you're from Arizona, or you're from Oklahoma, or you're from Minnesota, like, what happened to your family on the Oregon Trail? I mean, that's what I thought, right?
Yeah, no, I got you. It's like Donner Pass or something. You're like, no, I think it was more west than that.
But like, why did your family give up? That was my.
I was thinking.
Okay. Why did your family
That's really what I thought it meant. That's what I thought it meant. I was like, why did your family give up? And now I've visited a lot of America. I'm like, oh man, it's so beautiful in these places. I get it a lot more. But at the time, you know, they don't really make you think about America. I mean, there's less coherency in the United States, I think, than there is in all of Europe or a lot of other places, right? Where
maybe you were influenced by The Wiz also, you know, where it's just like California, and then everything is just a means to an end to get to play Super Mario Brothers 3, you know?
That is true. I think The Wiz...
Oh, did I say The Wiz? I meant The Wizard. Excuse me.
The Wiz Kid, you think is what you meant. Oh, yeah, Wiz...
No, I'm talking about The Wizard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. California.
The Nintendo one, right?
What do you say, Thomas?
That's the Nintendo one, the Wizard.
Yeah, the Nintendo one. And he's like, California. Because he's really great at video games, and he's got to go to California because in California, they're ready for him. See, like, the rest of the world's not ready for him wherever he is yet. And, like, that's because his family lost on the Oregon Trail. I don't know. It just seemed like that was, you know? That's the logic they were trying to sell me on as a kid.
Is that what's going on? Is it a play on? Is The Wizard a play on the Oregon Trail? I know that is it okay? So let me see if I got if this tracks. So once again, Tom Hanks was in Wizards and was it Mazes and what was it? It's a play on Dungeons and Dragons. His very first movie, Tom Hanks's first movie. Wizards,
Mazes and Monsters.
Mazes and Monsters. So then
right.
In this game, he's playing isn't there a video game in this too?
Right. And then of course in this thing it's like the video game is reality because like it's become the RPG. The RPG has replaced the actual
right because he goes
cover right there. Like I want to see that movie all over again, even though I know it's kind of crappy.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's not as good as Bobo the Wiz, right? Bobo the Wiz is still my favorite like. This movie is definitely you should. Oh no, wait, Bobo the Wiz, Germany. Where is that movie?
Bobo the Wiz.
Was this in a different reality? Different.
Oh no, where is it? Bobo. Bodo. Is that what it is? Bodo. Wiz. Come on, there it is. The Wiz. The Wiz Kid. This movie is. There's all these different Wiz Kid movies. This movie
is that you? Did you play the Wiz Kid?
No, but I was the kid in Shazam, which is all the reason why I'm so upset at the Mandela effect. But the Wiz Kid, he clones himself because he doesn't have he's got like a rich German parents that have a shrink for him who's trying to teach him to have like release his primal beast and pick up a sword and become a man and all this stuff that you're like, whoa, is that what they teach to German kids that they want to reach excellence? And so to save time, he like clones himself, and the clone of himself is kind of able to impress everybody, including his mom. And there's a very weird sort of Oedipian scene with his mom and the Wiz Kid. You got to see the Wiz Kid ever before you die. probably. That's all I'm saying. This scene right here.
So Big, the movie Big had the Oregon Trail video game in it, right?
Awesome.
Am I right?
But it's in German, so you have to speak German or like figure it out. It's just, dude.
Was that Rick Astley? That's crazy.
It looks like Rick Astley. Oh, there's so much that goes on in this movie. You got it, dude. I can't even show it to you. It actually gets to a level too close to Epstein for TV. I think there's a lot that went on beyond the making of The Whiz Kid, but we got off track. Point is that this is probably about the Wizard of Oz as the Oregon Trail, and the Oregon Trail is definitely.
There's something really like archetypal about the Oregon Trail, and you're kind of like waking me up to it right now because it doesn't take me long before I'm thinking about it. I'm like wasn't Big use the Oregon Trail? Like that was like he was playing the game with but I feel like there's like a really weird, strange attraction between Big,
the Oregon
and
Trail,
Mazes and Monsters.
The Oregon Trail. There's a movie called Oregon Trail. I'm gonna have to.
There's a really good game too.
Oregon.
There's definitely some potential there. Well, there's the Oregon Trail movie with John Wayne, right? And then go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
if I didn't see the cover, I would have thought that the Oregon Trail was a porno.
Yeah, true. I hear you. But Cannibal the musical is kind of another, like, it's a take on the Oregon Trail, right? And it's at the Donner Party. You remember Trey Parker's Cannibal the musical?
Oh yeah.
It's a masterpiece, I think, really. And just this idea of people getting stuck along the way and what they do when they like find their town or find their place that they can survive.
Have you seen that? Can we watch that? Is that like you have to go to it? What is?
Oh,
what
you
is
can.
that?
You've not seen Cannibal the musical? It's
No, I haven't seen this. No.
Oh, dude, I'll come over and we will watch this. Actually, then I have it on DVD. Basically,
Oh wait, is this the one that he did when he was in college?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Never mind.
Yeah,
I didn't know what I was looking at.
I was just like, what? How is that possible that you haven't seen Cannibal the musical?
It looked like it was new the way that the poster was for it, and it was like not a student film. But yeah, no, I've seen
13th anniversary 2-disc Spadoinkle edition now available. I mean, that's probably kind of old, but
This
yeah,
is too painfully violent, though, man. It's so violent. I mean, it's really, it eats at you.
I mean, I just Kill Bill, that scene. I think about that idea of like when, the fountain blood in Holy Mountain, where just they shoot blood out like decoratively, and it no longer is violent because
it's true. It reaches this level of absolute absurdity that it doesn't even. But at least with Kill Bill, it still kind of looks somewhat real. Some of it, But
I mean, the scene with the iguanas and the the hell did he have and the frogs? That one is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I highly recommend watching Holy Mountain with Marilyn Manson's Hollywood, which I have on the website and Twitter. But,
yeah, the iguana thing is interesting, like that, just that idea, because they're showing like in Holy Mountain sort of the 1968 Olympics, and then they show
the conquistadors showing
the
up.
Conquistadors.
Yeah.
Well, first they've got the people and the protest, right, and then they go to the art history, which is their little model of the conquistadors taking over.
The guy from God, what band was he in? Was
Played
it
by the Reptilians?
It was Country Joe and the Fish, right? The Country Joe and the Fish guy is in that scene.
Do you hear that? What? Oh, it's Sam Newsman. Sam, how's it going, Sam?
Whoa, wait, hold on, wait, no, stop. I just died of dysentery. Listen, I just got across the Mississippi River. I just got across the Mississippi River and I died of dysentery. Hold on, wait, here comes. Hold on, wait.
Newsman, the puppet Sam Newsman, the most trusted puppet news without all the fuss, telling the truth. He's just a newsman, the puppet Sam Newsman. I know he's out there unveiling the facts, chasing down clues. Sam Newsman, I gotta be there. He knows the truth. Sam Newsman, the puppet reporter of news.
I think you were meant to lip sync, Sam. You're really good at it.
Thank you.
You could be like a lip sync artist on YouTube or something, like TikTok.
You know what I'm not good at? I'm not good at shooting this little pellet gun. You know when you're playing Oregon Trail, and all of a sudden you hop out of the wagon, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to start shooting the deer and the bear. How come the only thing that I can hit is the damn squirrel and the rabbit? I'm not going to be able to feed my family with that. No wonder why we didn't get. You know, wonder why we got stuck in Arizona. Xirtus, that's why. Because all I had to eat was nothing but rabbits and squirrels. And, Pops died of dysentery, and this is about as far as we made it.
That is a sad story, man.
Listen, it's tough. It's tough out there.
My grandmother, her sister died of tuberculosis, and so they moved into a dead family's home in Arizona because it was the only thing they could afford.
What?
But then they got through Arizona and she skipped a grade and left. But that's how I feel about Arizona. I feel like get out as quick as you can.
Is that free?
It's hot.
Well, listen, you guys were bringing up a couple of different things. One of them was The Wizard. The Wizard with Fred Savage.
Great movie.
And Super Mario 3. I guess here's the question. Did you use the flutes to be able to beat it? Or did you go all the way through?
Yeah. I just talked about this, I think, last week, where I relatively recently, got to the end and then forgot that you're supposed to just avoid Bowser and let him kill himself. And I jumped at him like I'm going to get him like I do everything else. And I was like, damn, there's that. You just got to avoid him.
Yeah, he's going to keep breaking.
It's Godzilla on the Freemasonic dance floor. You're supposed to know this by now.
Absolutely. Well, they're actually in the process of possibly making a remake of Super Mario 3.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, actually. It's going to be cool.
Well, have you played Mario Wonder?
Yeah, I love Mario Wonder. I did play Mario Wonder.
Wonder is incredible. It's really great. Talk about trippy. It is fantastic.
That was when I was trying to remember the name of it because I just played it and I had no idea what it was. Like, this is really good. Like, this is really probably the best Mario game in years. It's really incredible.
Well, it's the first one in about 10 years that's been a side scroller. The way that I think the last one was on was it the Wii U, I think, or something like that. But anyways, yes, big Mario fan, and I tell everybody all the time that if you can get through Mario 3 without using the whistle, then you're a baller. Then you're
that was the question? Oh, yeah, I've done that. You have to do that.
Yeah, you have to go all the way
through. See everything. You're going sightseeing. You don't want to just skip out on the trip.
Use the flutes, you're going to miss out on the shoe. You're going to miss out on the frog. You're going to miss out on all the cool little power-ups that you get along the way. But hell, listen, if you're trying to speed run, grab the damn flute. Grab the flute. Let's just beat the game. I mean, that's what I would say. So, but gentlemen, listen, I tell you what, you guys were talking about math. Give you a little math statistic here in Richmond, Virginia. There was no 7th grader that passed the standardized test for math. So
what, in the entire
not
state?
A single one?
Not a single.
Oh, not state, grader. But no.
Oh my God!
In the entire town, you're saying in Richmond, Virginia.
The Virginia SOQUEL for 7th grade math in the city of Richmond. So
of Richmond's really doing bad. You're saying you're worried about the math in Richmond.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess they were. Oh, Richmond. Oh,
the chance that they just transcended math.
My gosh!
Listen, but there's a certain it's people are failing in math. It's
aren't there? Problem. Do you just mean private schools? Because certainly aren't there state statists whose kids are passing in Richmond, right? Isn't there somebody?
This is just the public school,
right?
The public school SOL is what they're calling it. Isn't it funny they call it SOL?
It is kind of funny, isn't it?
That's ironic. Oh yeah, well, I guess all the 7th graders were all SOL.
They all know that 2 + 2 = 5 there.
Well, I mean, that's maybe what
you can't trick them. They're actually the smartest people in the country.
That's what they believe. If they believe that within their heart and accepted 5 as their Lord and Savior, then I mean, I guess that's probably what it's all about. I mean, hey, listen, 5 is 4. 5
you just haven't grown up in a non-Euclidean environment. That's
the thing.
That's right.
You're intolerant. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
You're being intolerant of non-Euclidean.
But we're talking about Maryland and Virginia. Like, this is a place where we have a lot of some of the most important people in the world, or at least in America, people who are running the state, right? Like state department people. I'm assuming their kids are probably going to different.
They're going to private schools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Being homeschooled. Yeah. Well, listen, they're still stuck in 2 + 2 4ville. Of course, all the progressives in public school, they're what is it? Yeah, they're in 5ville now. So hey, I mean, I guess it's just a
upgrade.
Yeah, it's upgrade. Well, oh man, poor Richmond. I swear it was ever. Well, no, I'm not going to get into it. That'll upset somebody. Listen, there used to be a lot of historical things in Richmond.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, but they all got torn down. Yeah, they got torn down. Yeah, I guess. Well, because history doesn't matter.
I feel like they should have just painted the statues to look like clowns or something like that. I feel like you could always do something with them. Like always add more, don't take away. Like
Grant could be Darth Vader, and you just make them what you want to make them.
Right? Yeah. Switch the heads
down.
or something with Kermit. Yeah, exactly. I like that.
Yeah, well, listen. One of the interesting thing was that they said that, hey, we're going to take all these statues down, put them in museums with a little write-up to educate everybody and blah, 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 blah. You know what they did? They tore them all down and they started chopping the heads off and melting them all down.
Yeah.
Wasn't Robert E. Lee really opposed to having any statues made of the South? Do I have that correct?
I don't know about that.
Well, I believe he was a very private individual, specifically after post-war. And if you read some of his writings, if you line them up with Lincoln, you might even say that Lincoln seems to be a little bit more racially
charged. Yeah.
Yes, that's the word. I didn't want to say the R, not that R word, but the other R word. Right.
Yeah, no, Abraham Lincoln gets a way too good rap for a guy who arrested people for polluting the ballot box with other people's names. Like, he always was kind of a dictator, and it is interesting. We look at, like, the fall of a nation, and they were tearing down things from America, like the idea of America.
Listen, he was throwing journalists in jail.
Right.
If you were writing against what they were doing in D.C., Lincoln was like, throw the bum in jail.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you could not write anything. And it was like, well, what the hell does the Constitution mean? If I can't sit there and write about it, oh, well, you know what? You must be working for the South. Throw them, lock them away.
This is why I said it should have been written on, like, sheepskin and vellum or something instead of on hemp.
If it's going to be on sheepskin, the next thing you know, it's going to be around some mason's waist.
Yeah, true. But the hemp paper, like Constitution, I don't think they take it quite as seriously. And the idea of an amendment, and you don't have any rights, you have amendments, which are amends, you can change them. There are already changes to begin with as the document begins. But I was thinking with the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union had all these statues and they tore them down, and you knew that the Soviet Union was over because they were tearing down these statues, right? And they ended up in these big graveyards of statues. And is that kind of what we're saying? Because America, is this the end? Is that it? The statue tear down means that kind of like the fall of our Soviet Union,
Well, listen, that is a good question. I have no clue. All I know is that Monument Avenue was, or it still is, I guess, but it was the only national historical, I think it was a historical landmark, the only road that was a historical landmark in the country. And of course, if you lived on Monument Avenue, I mean, you'd walk outside and you had these beautiful, beautiful monuments all up and down. There it is right there. Beautiful Monument Avenue.
And you feel like you're in Paris or something cool. Yeah.
It was pretty incredible. And of course, now the property values are crap. And you know what? If you went down,
hey, that was kind of pretty. I like the one with all the graffiti on it like that.
That's the thing.
Nice.
I'll take a rainbow over a destroyed a melted down statue, because you could do cool things with this. Like, you can always.
Because you know what I like about this? It looks like the people have kind of claimed it, the space to a degree. Not just claimed it, but kind of like
integrated
it. Yeah, there's like different. I like a different approach. That's nice.
Well, it was something, but they were supposed to just take it down. And
you ever see what Amsterdam looks like with the graffiti in Amsterdam? It's fucking beautiful. Like, the graffiti in Amsterdam just like adds to the whole thing. And I think the reason is because none of those people that are tagging it up like that, none of them are afraid, because the penalties for graffiti are not like they are here. Like, there's this isn't the best example necessarily, but if you're going along and you're riding the train through Amsterdam, it's like just the everywhere. It's really incredible art.
Yeah, I think at some point, like, that's an interesting idea. Like, do you get to make your home your home? I mean, these people live here. They don't necessarily own it, but they live here forever, and the people who own it might not. Like, it might be that this whole street's owned by some globalist lives in some other part of the world, and they're just living here, and they want to make it yellow. They want to this is what they live in every day, right? So I wonder about graffiti, because graffiti seems like a good thing. I think we should be pro graffiti and anti tearing down statues.
I think we're too hung up on symbolism in general, and I think it's
There you
good to
go.
just, you know,
That's it.
yeah, it's like, and
Nailed it.
it's the other side of it. It's that you erect the statue and people will have problems with it, and you tear the statue down and people will have problems with it. In both cases, understandably so. So depending on the particulars, you know, because when you have a statue, it's like there's this implied agreement, like we're all on the same page. Like if you look at Ellis Island, but then even at Ellis Island, you have plaques and things that were made later on that we attribute to like the beginnings of Ellis Island. But what it is in the first place is something other. But it's like they get reshaped, and sometimes they're reshaped by the powers that be, and sometimes they're reshaped by us. I like it better when they're reshaped by us as a general rule.
Listen,
but if
somebody
it's
in the
really
chat-
coming from us, you know.
Listen, somebody in the chat just made an interesting comment. Street art is not graffiti, and graffiti is not street art. I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to say there, but do you guys? I mean, is there a difference between street art and graffiti?
For sure. Like Roman graffiti, like where the term comes from, has a lot to do with people in their time scratching at like the wall plaster or the surface and making community art. I think graffiti itself is a kind of art, but it's a social expression, and they're aware that like they're living in a place that they don't really own the thing that they're writing on. So someone's scratching on your wall. People did this often to say like this place has poisoned their food, or like it's, you know, not safe to eat here, or they did to say like this is, you know, what a cool thing happened recently. Graffiti also, the earliest picture we have of Christ is a piece of Roman graffiti, right? So I mean, let me see if I can find that Roman Jesus.
What about, are we talking hobo code? Does that count as graffiti?
Yeah, hobo code and hobo coins are not really graffiti. I guess they are, right? Kind of hobo coins. Coins.
Yeah, it's like the facing or graffiti of coins.
Yeah, I think I'm putting real value into it, though, is the irony, because you're saying, people are often saying, oh, this isn't art. In a situation like Amsterdam, it's more clearly art because they're not, like you said, being forced out of doing this. So they're not doing this so quickly. They can actually spend all day on the art, and they can be proud of it. And in America, I think you have to do it so quickly so you don't get in trouble. Although in the 70s and the 80s, you could just, no one cared and there's no one trying to fix it. And so you would go out and paint your community. Like Harlem in the 70s was kind of falling apart. And so people had no infrastructure, and there was maybe plans eventually that there was going to be infrastructure, but they knew it wasn't coming themselves. So a lot of independent groups, militias, vigilantes, gangs, and everything did a lot of positive works, right? Cleaning out streets, painting buildings, painting the sides of roads, and doing murals and things. But also they were kind of competitive graffiti still. So I would say like they were putting their name up in different sorts of Arabesque, Cyrillic, and interesting cursives. And I would say that graffiti and street art definitely merged at that point, right?
Yeah, well, you'll have the distinction between like a piece and a throw up, and you'll have some throw up there, and it looks like vomit. And the thing is, though, is that when they found, like, this happens with a lot of other things too, where you drop the laws, you don't have the laws to begin with, and you'll see actually people treating it with a lot more respect. It's almost like the Purge, where they're expecting everybody to like kill each other because there's no rules for a night or whatever, and then they just want to party. So it's just like a big rave. And then the government's just like, wait, you guys are supposed to be like, you know, it's the weird thing about law sometimes. Like, we'd really just sort it out. It could take a generation or two with certain things because it takes a generation of troubleshooting. But like, if you just like legalized all drugs right now and just said, screw it, it would work itself out. It wouldn't take that many generations before people were like, oh, well, these drugs are really helpful and these drugs fucking suck. And look at what they do in the long run. So, you know, like, yeah, anyway.
Graffito is just Latin, and it just means in an archaeological context, like the deliberate mark made by scratching or engraving on a large wall or surface. So when we think of graffiti, like, we just have to understand it really is, we're using a Latin, Roman, Italian term, you know, and so it isn't really, anytime you're using it, like saying ghetto or graffiti or something like that, and you're applying it to Americanisms from the 20th century or anytime, it's just trying to be contemporaneous with a Latin term. You have to understand it comes from an older meaning, right?
Well, you know, it's interesting about the whole thing about street art and graffiti. And it seems like that years ago, that if someone tagged something and put made an art mural or in the middle of the night, of course, here comes the road crew the next day or two, and they get rid of it. But now it seems like that the more that we move forward into the future, that sometimes these people will sit there and tag something, and then they'll just leave it because it's just so good.
Right.
They're like, wait a minute, we're not going to touch that.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it's becoming more culturally acceptable to just next thing you know, spray paint a whole, side of a building with Bernie Sanders' face. And the next thing you know, nobody does anything about it. They're like, oh, wait a minute, let's just keep burning up there forever now. And
yeah, you know what? Outside of my work, I work in a frame shop, and people all like every so often, about once a year, somebody has some stupid tag. I caught them doing it one time when they were scratching the window, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I opened the door suddenly, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And the kid ran away. Had a skateboard, total classic Bart Simpson little punk. I was like, "Get out of here!" But yeah, it's always these shitty throw ups. I'm just like, every time it happens, I'm just like, why can't you know what? I wish like the cops would just leave you alone for a night and you could just give me Baby Yoda or whatever the fuck you want. But as long as it's a real piece, like I'd totally be down,
Go
ahead
it's
always got to be this shitty stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And I don't know what it's like now. This is in my 20s in Amsterdam. It was like every time I would go there, I would see this incredible art. But the impression I was getting was that because there was so much space for them to spray paint on, they didn't really get as drawn to the businesses. When it's illegal, you're just like, well, screw it all. There's like an attitude to doing it in the first place. And that energetic shows up in the art. So if you're just like tagging up the front of some business or some place where you're like, it's just disrespectful. If you have that freedom, you're not as drawn to be disrespectful. Like it can happen, but it's actually less likely. You got a bridge over there, you can throw something on. You don't have to, go mess with, the guy's, little drugstore, or whatever.
With a frame shop.
Yeah, or a frame shop. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Indeed. Pretty incredible. I saw somebody in the chat. They said street art is made by hipsters.
I mean, I think if like a dude goes out and he paints all the walls red or white so they look clean again, like that's kind of graffiti too. Like that's kind of graffiti. It's cool. It's what it is. And people will make art over other art. That's a big thing. Is they'll tag a tag and they'll like take a zone and stuff like that. I think if art is competitive to make better art, that's probably fine. A bigger problem probably is corporations putting up murals that nobody wants to see. Billboards from Clear Channel are a far bigger problem than graffiti,
You know what? It makes sense that the worst freaking graffiti would be gang graffiti. Like in terms of the like lack of creativity or whatever. Like gang graffiti, when you're just claiming a place, like it's not the same. Like somebody will, get all pissed because somebody tagged over their tag. But that's like gang shit. It's like if somebody has a really nice piece of art, it's not that likely that somebody's going to paint all over it too quickly.
These are the last time that I was in Amsterdam and all the graffiti that I took pictures of.
Yeah, just beautiful stuff everywhere. And in places like, especially I think if you find a wall that's starting to look bad, that's where they like to do a piece, right?
Well, it's like making something new again.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it's evil. A lot of people have a problem with graffiti, and maybe they live in a place. I think a lot of people misuse graffiti. There's a lot of people that are using it for evil. I'm sure like people are destructive and they're trying to destroy a pretty place with graffiti. That's probably a thing. But I mean, also it's like you got kids who have no way to make their mark or to influence the reality they're living in. Like they want to have a say over their reality to some extent. We should probably make some way. Like there could be just community walls, like in Venice Beach, right? There's a community area of walls that are for people to come and spray paint by the beach on purpose.
I think that's healthy. That's healthy for the community and the artist.
Right. Yeah, I think we need stuff like that. That's probably what towns need, is like places that are designed for the purpose of it.
The thing that always makes me scratch my head is when I see a piece of graffiti or something that's been tagged and on some kind of bridge or some overpass, and I'm like, how the hell did somebody get up there?
Yeah,
totally. I'm like, what? How did they get there? I mean, who? Wait a minute, and who was it? I know there had to be cars driving around. I mean, because it wasn't as.
They probably had strings.
Strings.
Yeah, to hold them up.
Puppets?
Yeah, hold them up. I think so they could get up there.
I had a friend die that way actually in Aptos.
Really?
Yeah, from that the trestle there. before the couple people have died there. Somebody died trying to sneak into the blues festival that way once. But yeah, they hang from the trestle, and it's such a big drop. Just they die when they hit the bottom. Yeah,
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
Listen, that right there is some balls. That's some balls. Try to. Hey, listen, I got to make sure that I go and paint this one little area that nobody else will ever get to, so that everybody can see it while I'm driving down the freeway. And good grief. That and then you know what's also next to it is the pair of shoes hanging on the line over there too. It's like there's also that little pair of sneakers. It's like the pair of sneakers hanging on the line, and then there's that.
They throw those, by the way. They don't set them, but yeah, I got you.
That's because I thought that's because angels, every time an angel gets their wings, they leave their Nikes behind.
I thought it was just another Tom Hanks. Anyways, oops. Zing.
Oops. Oh, you thought he was the Tom Hanks thing with the that was a single sneaker. If there's a pair of sneakers, then it's not Tom Hanks.
It's not Tom Hanks.
One
that's
sneaker,
right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Just a kitty ate.
If it's a pair of gloves, it's bad. If it's one glove, then it's Hanks. That's right.
Or Michael. Right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Well, I could show them. Like, Sam, what have you been up to, man? Because I know you've been doing a lot this week. You've got your cartoon show that you've been doing on the weekends. I can pull them that. I can show them that.
Yes, yeah. Every Saturday morning. Saturday mornings were a time of magic and imagination, toys, cartoons, and the government took them away. They took them away. That's the truth. Listen, that is the truth. The government took away your cartoons. But far be it from me to let the magic of Saturday morning just die into the ether. So what do? I show up every Saturday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern time, WDCE 90.1 FM, and I play cartoon themes on the radio, all for 3 hours. And I play that in between, of course, my wonderful segments of me commentating about whatever the hell I want to. Oh, look, there I am, in the studio. And we have a good time. We have a good time.
Stuff. It's an amazing show.
You gonna hang out with Garfield?
Oh yeah, listen, we go back. We go way back.
Could you get me his catograph?
Well, I mean, I'll see what
I'll ask you later. You don't have to.
All my homies only hang out with
there might be a few other things that might need to happen for that. But yes, that's
a high request.
A possibility. Could be a possibility. Yes, we have a good old time every single Saturday morning. Of course, it is December, so being that it's December, we are playing Christmas music. One of the songs is a friend of ours, Christmas in the Ghetto. We'll be playing that this week as well. But yeah, Christmas songs from Christmas specials. A lot of deep cut stuff that you might remember, that you might have maybe forgotten about. But we're playing nothing but Christmas jams, deep cut Christmas jams throughout all of the holiday season. Now,
I did the Chipmunks Christmas. That's one of my favorites. I love the Chipmunks.
Oh, I did. Yes, I did the Chipmunks. I did. Did you see today's?
I saw it was the Grinch. I saw the Grinch one you did.
The Grinch was yesterday, but I just posted today's before I actually hopped on here with you guys. I don't know if it should be on Instagram and TikTok. I think is where I posted it. Oh, there it is. Yes, because today is December the 5th. Happy Krampusnacht. That's right.
Thank you.
Christmas Day. That's the island greeting that we sing to you from the land where palm trees sway.
Oh my word, that's some classic right there. And also, isn't today Saint Nicholas Mass? Right, I think is a Krampusnacht is Saint Nicholas Mass.
It was also celebrated on the 6th, I believe, depending. But yeah, Krampus.
St. Nicholas, December 6th. Yeah, there it is. Right. There you go. So we're on the actual St. Nicholas Day for Santa Claus, the Sinterklaas, right? This is Krampus Klaus. So yeah.
Well,
way to tie it into reality.
The 8th is the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, which is the day that John Lennon died. It's also my birthday.
Ooh.
But it's Jim Morrison's birthday. It's John Lennon's death day, and like I say, it's the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And it's interesting that John Lennon was killed in front of the Dakota, which is essentially like where Rosemary's Baby was shot. that's basically that film is a twisted version of the Immaculate Conception, right? So there's something weird to that one.
Pretty based. All right.
So,
but yeah.
When you say 3 hours, are you saying that you're singing for these 3 hours, like
No,
these
I'm
songs
not
yourself?
singing. No. So I have segments. Where I'm actually broadcasting and having my own commentary. There's about 6 segments where it's just me chatting. Sometimes I do open up the phone lines. It's a broadcast.
You have a beautiful voice, so
yeah.
So much. I appreciate that. Classically trained, if you will. But
yeah, if you didn't go into reporting, you could have been a singer.
Yeah, well, it's but yeah. So it's 3 hours. It's 3 hours, and there's several segments. I do broadcast, of course, on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and X. So I'm live streaming all 3 of those as I'm also on an FM signal. So it's actually an actual FM broadcasting signal, real radio. And but then I do have just radio segments, and those radio segments are the segments where you will hear cartoon themes or Christmas themes or whatever in between the segments where I'm live on video. I can't even. My hat's about to fall off.
That's how you know you're cool. You're like careless about it. You're like, I don't even care. I got my fedora.
I always think about that. I was watching Rob Schneider on the John Cleese's new show, which I highly recommend, the Dinosaur Hour. But he wears these fedoras, and he has them like resting on his head, almost like a yarmulke. And I'm just like, I find it amazing that it doesn't fall off, and it's like it's part of the coolness. You're like, he's just totally confident. I'm like, does he have little clips in there, like
I used to do
like
that.
Indiana Jones? What do you do?
I used to do that, and I had this like cool freaking like leopard print fedora that I wore to Burning Man, and then one day I'm in San Francisco, and it's just like on there, and this gust of wind comes and it blows it off. I left it in the street. I was so embarrassed. I was like.
You left it in the street?
I was done with it. Yeah, it was the end of that.
Somebody else was very happy, probably.
San Francisco. That's how that works there.
That's right. Yep. Somebody grabbed it and used it as a toilet, I'm sure.
That's the reason I left it in the street, Sam. You don't know where that street's been.
They actually shit on the sidewalk, not usually on anything other than the sidewalk. I've observed this. I've been exposed to it. There's fecal matter all around the city, but it's all on the concrete. Yeah. They don't shit in hats. There might be one weirdo out there shitting in a hat, but it's just
that'd be a great scene in a movie though. Some guy like comes to San Francisco, he's playing music with his hat out for money, and he's like, "No!" like that.
No, there goes all my dollar bills and change. Yeah. All the pennies are now stuck together.
I'm hoping for like that Horizon Zero Dawn future though, like Battlefield Earth, where San Francisco, all of that manure and compost turns into like green. And it just this whole city is covered in green, and it'll be beautiful. It'll be this nice foamy green like algae that you can walk on.
This,
right? Like
this shit could be back Eden, but they wouldn't let us fucking plant fruit trees and let the Johnny Appleseed fucking cause just really extend itself across.
That's the kind of graffiti I wanted to talk about. Is urban agriculture. People that Food Not Bombs groups. I'm a big fan of the Food Not Bombs groups. Have you not heard of Food Not Bombs?
I want to talk to me about this.
Okay, there's a couple groups. One is Food Not Lawns, and then the more serious, like as you get into the inner circle, then there's Food Not Bombs. And so the difference is essentially that you food bomb. And one of the things is you make a compost ball that has seeds in it, and when you throw it, then it starts to grow in places. And so what you can do is, and what I would never recommend in the middle of the night, a bunch of people in a van or a car with their window down, launching compost balls of female fruit-bearing trees all over the urban planned agriculture. It would just ruin all of the suburban urban systems of male trees that can't bear fruit. I mean, just imagine how horrible it would be if all of a sudden there's just food everywhere that people could eat. But
it'd be really terrible if people did that.
It'd be bad. Don't
bad. Very bad.
Yeah, stick to regular bombs, people. Sorry, I didn't mean to say anything.
Wait. Hold on, wait.
I kid. No, but we really ought to look into Food Not Lawns also, because even on a broader scale, there are people that have access to their own canvas where they could be growing more than grass. And while grass is kind of interesting, I mean, like I've talked to people because I've said grass is not interesting, and then Try telling that to somebody who grows grass, because like they can talk your ear off about how interesting grass is. However,
listen, you just ask Grandpa, and Grandpa will talk your damn ear off about grass.
That's literally what just happened.
The damn lawn.
That's just rude. Yeah. And, oh man, I've seen it done. I've seen like a grandfather beat Lawnmower Simulator 40,000. You know, like that game.
What?
Yeah, there's a simulator game for kids to learn about lawn mowing.
Well, I'm familiar with Farming Simulator, but
yeah, he beat it. He beat
Grandpa
it.
can play that?
Yeah, dude, and he can win. But I think the real problem is that we're growing lawns instead of food. It'd be so easy to start integrating again kinds of edible landscape into everything. Maybe your community college, maybe your business, if your supermarket. Why it'd be hilarious if Safeway had edible herbs in the parking lot. You know what I mean? I think we should start moving towards that. And it's going to be more and more relevant as people get away from exhaust cars, because there's going to be less and less excuses. But even just like livestock food. Look at Iowa right now and what's going on. Like, you need to have certain things that leach out toxins that are in the soil.
You have the food is being shipped over such long distances, and so the food is so localized in, like, if you're talking about the United States, it's like there's like areas in the United States that's specific for different foods that are getting delivered. Like right now, what's going on with Russia with the sanctions and stuff, they're supplying wheat for like all the Middle East practically.
Yep.
And so it's like and so if you cut that off, you're going to have a lot of starving people. But I really feel like the fruit tree thing, we should have fucking fruit trees everywhere across the whole goddamn country. If I'm gonna do my Rush Limbaugh the way things ought to be right now, that's like that's the way things ought to be. Like there's infrastructure problems that we're putting on people. We did that with fucking hospitals, whereas like we have millions less hospital beds than we had in the 70s, with millions more people. And it's like, it's so counterintuitive. And they're meant to run like freaking hotels where you want to keep the rooms filled like 80%, like all the time. And so God forbid you have something terrible happen. And the way people were to each other about like, oh, I hope, you don't get a hospital bed if you're fucking unvaccinated or whatever. And be like, dude, you gotta be considerate of like the infrastructure issues and not put that on people's shoulders that it's all their fault, when it's just like this is so I mean, you can say all you want about Medicare for all, Bernie Sanders, whatever the fuck, but it's like the squad voted against that when they had the chance. And Nancy Pelosi made the call, and somehow they like all these people like Young Turks or whatever were like rationalizing it. They're like, okay, all this talk about Medicare for all, you know what that would have done for the fucking COVID hysteria crisis? My God, if that bill had actually gone through, like it would have been a whole different reality. People talk so greatly about Sweden when Bernie was popular, and then as soon as fucking COVID shit happened, it was like Sweden became super like demonized. It's like, well, you guys flipped fast. You know why Sweden was able to do what they did and ended up having statistically less deaths than most places in Europe, was like they're able to do that because of their healthcare system. It's still not perfect, but like they were able to do that, so they did it. It's like we can't bring ourselves to the profit shit. Get into any issue, and it's always the goddamn big pharma and the medical infrastructure. It's like it's trans issues. It's all tied up with fucking big pharma. It's all those meds that everybody's taking.
Well,
not everybody, but you know what I'm saying.
They're pumping the meds now into the food. Now they're pumping the meds into the food. And I tell you what, if the next time, if there were a bunch of apple trees aligned on Monument Avenue, I don't care if they tore down the damn statues. I'm going to go grab me a damn apple. Listen, that would be great. Hey, if you had
that's better symbolism.
Oh, they're the best. Yeah. Screw the statues. Who cares about the statues? Let's have the apples. Oh my gosh, what a missed opportunity.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, you know, the way that banyan trees and stuff will look when the vines, like if you go to a graveyard or something, or you just see the way that they interact together. That's what I'd like to see around the statues, just like a bunch of fucking roots just like twisting up around it. You know, that'd be cool.
That'd be fun. Listen, as long as they didn't tear them down, there's still an educational moment. It'd be an educational moment regardless.
Well, isn't this the fucking twisted thing? It's like we're saying we're so enlightened because we've learned from the past, and then what do we want to do? We want to censor the things from the past. We're so enlightened because we've seen it, and we have the evidence, and we can point at the evidence and go, look, this is on record that this happened. Like, we didn't used to have that. It used to be like paintings or it didn't happen. And now it's like you're getting into an area where you're like, wow, you want to censor the past. Because with the argument being that we're so enlightened because we've learned so much from the past. Like, that's such a contradiction. I don't know how that one passed.
Well, it reminds me of one thing, gentlemen, and that is the World Fairs. Broadcasting live deep in an underground military bunker or a spaceship high above the plain of Earth. From the most trusted puppet in media, reporting since Roswell, I'm Sam Newsman.
I know he's out there unveiling the facts, chasing down clues. Sam Newsman, I gotta be there. Touching that carpet, feeling that beat. When I'm getting off it, my heart skips a beat.
Oh, I love Sam. He's a good guy. He's a good guy, isn't he? He's great. Well, we are like past time. Is there anything else you guys wanted to cover though? Like, because I know we just got at the end there. Is there anything else you wanted me to make sure we pulled up before I show them where they get your material?
No, I'm good. It's just funny because I was just looking at Meet the Feebles like before this call, like moments before this call, and then what do we?
You should have brought that. You should have brought that up because Meet the Feebles, like that's one of the ways that Sam and I really connect. Is I think he auditioned for Meet the Feebles or something like that, and he realized when he got back there, like this is not the kind of people you want to be working with. Like
this is actually inspired by Tolkien, though, right?
Oh God, it has to be. Is it? Is it secretly about Lord of the Rings? That makes them. That's a deep rabbit hole to go down. Oh, you've seen Meet the Feebles, right, Thomas?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
Steve. No, not Steve Jackson.
Peter Jackson,
Lord of the Rings guy. Peter Jackson, right?
Peter Jackson. So when I was a kid, I was always like, they're gonna let who make the Lord of the Rings? The guy who made the Meet the Feebles? Because I'd seen this.
Was didn't he do Dead Alive, or am I making that up?
He did a weird one. Peter Jackson, Dead or Alive. He did like some bloody gore. Brain Dead. He did Brain Dead. I think is Dead Alive. Dead Alive.
Well, it was called Brain Dead, but I saw it as Dead Alive, dude. I remember seeing that in the middle of the night, and I called everyone I knew and was like, "You have to watch this." And everyone was like, "Yeah, this was a bad movie," but for whatever reason, dude, like I kick ass for the Lord, and the little rat that was like jumping on people, and the uncle.
Bad movies are good movies.
What no custard, and like the pus gets in the custard. It was the best movie ever. So.
Bad movies are good movies because they teach you a lot about how movies are made. Like you can see like what was wrong with the math behind that pop song. That's kind of the thing. But yeah, watch Meet the Feebles, watch Brain Dead or Dead Alive, and make sure you guys check out Paranoid American because he's got a comic project that's going pretty hard right now. Which one's
go on chaostwins.com and get some copies. It's going to be pretty crazy soon. I think I've got like over 500 orders to fulfill. So maybe next Tuesday I'll just be streaming from my living room as I fulfill orders.
The website's freaking out. It's like I don't know if I can handle this many more orders for Chaos Twins. Look at that. Great. Dude, the Russian DDoS, they don't want anyone to know about the Chaos Twins. That's what's happening. So make sure you go to paranoidamerican.com. And what was the decode? Like occult decode?
Occultdecode.com, yeah.
You guys should start using Occult Decode. I'll put the link into the chat here.
Stop using all the other ones. This one's better, and if it's not better, let me know and I'll fix it. But like, it's got all the cool features for free. All the ones that the other sites make you pay for. This one's got everything for free. There's nothing to even put money into on this. It's all free.
But we're gonna get the Hebrew part working, and I just pulled up Andreas Xirtus channel 2. Make sure you go to Andreas Xirtus channel 2 because we want to make sure that every we want a backup channel that works. We're pretty close here to 1,000 subscribers. Give us to the other 300 subscribers, please. Everybody go to Andreas Xirtus channel 2. It's youtube.com/@Xirtus2. And subscribe to that. You can get our backup videos here in case anything ever comes down. They're up there right now as well. And that'll be a helpful thing. And yeah, thank you guys for joining the memberships. That's super cool. Make sure you're going to tartarynova.com and you can join the Discord. If you join the Patreon, or if you've or in the membership, there's a way in the Discord you get like a particular new role that shows up. And yeah, I never bring it up, but like those of you who've recently joined the Patreon, thank you. And so with the Patreon, what I'm trying to do is put more AI art and AI music and videos that I've made. So some of the things I haven't released yet.
Comprehend we not?
The first ever discover your sentimental lament. Insert your silly slogan. Let all voices consent.
Yeah, so things you haven't found elsewhere are available on the Patreon as well. Just trying to make sure that there's like cool things for everyone everywhere. And you saw Sam Newsman. Make sure you go to the syncbook.com so you can get David's stuff. Go to videos, click on the sync flicks, and he's got all of his syncs right here. But that's just the beginning, because if you go to x.com, you can go to MK Ultra Sound 723, which is David Plate. And if you click on highlights, you can get all of his sync flicks, and he's adding more sync flicks every day. Every day. Every day.
Thank you. I just had a couple all-nighters on something that I still have to put more work into, but it's basically I'm revisiting the Rosemary's Baby sync with the White Album and Charles Manson Family Sings album. So
nice.
I'm putting volume between all the vocals of the Beatles and Charles Manson's family thing. And so I don't know, man. It's tripping me out a little bit because it was a sync that I did a deep dive into like like in terms of symbolism and everything that's going into it. Oh, that's ABBA. You're gonna get
it gets so
copyright.
loud. I tried to make it be quiet, but it wouldn't listen. All right, Venus and Furs with Lady Gaga's album Art Pop. I saw recently. I thought this was really great. Just wanted to say.
Well, anyway, eventually I'll have the Rosemary's Baby with the White Album up.
The second version, the new Rosemary Baby sync, which is sweet. Pretty cool.
Yeah, some of these have volume in between the vocals, and some of them don't from the film. So like you know, and sometimes it just flows so beautifully like that it's like necessary, or not necessary, but it really helps it. But
super necessary. Make sure you guys go to David Charles Plate, MK Ultrasound 723 on x.com, and you can do this in Paranoid America, Paranoid American's account on Twitter, x.com as well. Like, follow, get involved, send us money, send us all your money. Thank you for that. I appreciate what you do. And yeah, thanks guys. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Peace.